Chapter 3763. Before Hu Xinyue could finish her words, Ji Tianqing understood what she meant and waved his hand to deny it. If you want to increase the fame and prestige of our alliance, you can do it at any time. There's no need to rush. The reason why I sealed this place and didn't let anyone escape is to keep it a secret. Only in this way can we destroy the next stronghold in the shortest time possible. When we kill our way into Xuanji Grotto Heaven, we will announce to the world that we have destroyed the 4 strongholds with thunderous means. This will also increase the morale and prestige of the alliance. Hearing this, Hu Xinyue's face revealed a cruel expression. She quickly bowed and said, "I was reckless. I will follow your instructions." Ji Tianqing didn't say much. He waved his hand and recalled the huge primordial chaos bell. Swoosh! After a few breaths, the primordial chaos bell, which was 30,000 miles in radius, shrunk to about 1 foot tall. Ji Tianqing brought Hu Xinyue into the divine clock. He controlled the divine clock to fly into the sky and quickly left. The divine clock flew high in the sky. Just like before, it shrunk to the size of a sesame seed and traveled 10,000 miles in an instant. Ji Tianqing and Hu Xinyue stayed in the secret room of the divine clock. Ji Tianqing sat in the middle of the disk array and closed his eyes to rest. Just like before, Hu Xinyue sat behind him and silently circulated her qi to regulate her breathing. 10 hours after the divine clock left, the ruins that were 30,000 miles in radius attracted the attention of the nearby immortals. There was a county city not far from the ruins. There were a few immortal lord experts in the city. Late at night, one of the immortal lord experts went out to do something and happened to pass by the ruins. Although he was 20,000 miles away, the immortal lord could still sense that the surroundings were filled with violent and powerful divine aura. Surprised, the immortal lord carefully searched the surroundings. Not long after, he saw a huge and eye-catching ruin amidst the towering mountains and lofty ridges. The destructive divine power aura was emanating from the ruins. The immortal lord gathered his courage and carefully approached the ruins. He looked around the ruins. Although the battlefield had been cleaned up by more than 2,000 immortal lords, there were no divine weapons or immortal lord remains left. However, the earth was in a state of devastation. Shocking scars could be seen everywhere. The divine sovereign was alarmed. After careful inspection, he confirmed that a world-shaking battle had taken place here, and it had happened not too long ago. Terrified, the Sir God no longer cared about what he had to do. He hurried back to the county city and reported the news to the princess. That princess was a high divine lord and was a subordinate of the God-Star region lord. She could be considered a direct descendant of the mysterious grotto. He did not know that the god-kings of the profound paradise had set up a stronghold in the wilderness outside the provincial city. With his strength and status, he was not qualified to know the inside story. However, he was keenly aware that something big must have happened. He then thought of the recent tense situation and the various rumors on the continent. He immediately thought that it must have something to do with the war between the Myriad Demon League and the enigmatic Utopia. Thus, after the princess personally went to the scene to check the situation, she reported the news to the Divine Star Region Master. The mysterious paradise was located in the center of the God-Star Field. So the God-Star Field Master was naturally the most loyal servant of the mysterious paradise. Moreover, with his status and strength, he naturally knew the truth. When he found out that the stronghold had been turned into ruins and there was not a single person in sight, he was so frightened that he broke out in cold sweat. He was petrified. He knew very well that there were 4,000 divine lords and over 20 god-kings in the stronghold. Those were the experts and experts gathered from the various regions in the north. They were the powerful forces under the command of the mysterious paradise, and the vanguard to attack the Myriad Demon League in the future. Now, without any warning or news, the stronghold had been silently destroyed. How terrifying was this? The God-Star Region Master woke up from his shock and fear. His first reaction was to report this to the mysterious paradise's commander. Thus, when the Battle Dragon King and Qinyu found out about this, it was already 14 hours after the incident. The two commanders had been recuperating in the mysterious paradise and did not easily show themselves. Therefore, very few people knew how badly they were injured. The soldiers of the mysterious paradise only felt that with the Battle Dragon King and Qinyu in charge, They could rest easy. However, no one knew that when the Battle Dragon King and Qin found out about this, they were so scared that their faces turned pale and their eyes were filled with fear. A stronghold had been destroyed and 4,000 divine lords had been slaughtered. This was not enough to stun them, much less cause them to be so scared. What really made them panic was that this had happened so suddenly. There was no warning, no clue, no news. It happened just like that. Everyone in the stronghold was killed. Not a single person was left alive. Moreover, no one had been able to send out a warning or call for help. This was too terrifying. In the brightly lit study, the Battle Dragon King and Qin Yu looked at each other and saw the cold sweat on each other's foreheads. How is this possible? The news is fake, right? No matter how strong the Myriad Demon League is, they couldn't have arrived so quickly and destroyed a stronghold in such a short time. The news was reported by the Godstar Region Master, so it shouldn't be fake. However, I can't figure out how they did it. 4,000 divine lords and over 20 god kings. They were all killed and not a single one escaped? Even if they couldn't escape, why couldn't they send out a call for help? Also, all 4 strongholds had teleportation divine arrays. Once there was an emergency, they could retreat to Sky Crane Mountain. Why didn't the people in that stronghold use the teleportation divine array to retreat in time? I can't figure it out. This doesn't make sense. The 2 commanders analyzed and discussed. The more they thought about it, the more terrified they felt. In fact, they couldn't think of anyone who could have such a shocking method. In the next moment, the 2 of them looked at each other and shouted at the same time. Could it be Luoho Divine King himself? In their opinion, only a peak divine king with a supreme grade king-level divine artifact could create such a miracle. The moment they thought of this, the 2 of them became even more flustered. It's over. Luoho Divine King secretly returned to the Myriad Demon League and personally led an attack. If His Majesty Dragon Emperor doesn't come back, our mystical grotto heaven will really be destroyed. Now is not the time to discuss this. Since Luoho Divine King destroyed the White Jade Empire stronghold, he might be rushing to another stronghold. That's right. Luoho Divine King quietly destroyed that stronghold without leaking any news. He must be planning to continue the sneak attack. Send a message to the Xianfeng Empire stronghold now. Tell them not to hesitate and immediately retreat to Sky Crane Mountain. The 2 of them realized this problem and immediately took out their communication jade slips and sent an order to the divine kings guarding the Xianfeng Empire's stronghold. However, what Battle Dragon King and Qin Yu did not expect was that Ji Tianqing had already arrived at the Xianfeng Empire's stronghold. Chapter 3764. Within the Xianfeng Empire, there was a vast primeval forest in the southwest. There were many mountains in the forest and the terrain was dangerous. It was a paradise for monsters and beasts. There were many powerful beasts of the monarch god realm here. The common people and ordinary gods did not dare to come close. Therefore, the few counties near the primeval forest did not know that a large number of experts had been stationed here a month ago and built a secret stronghold in the depths of the primeval forest. The stronghold was among the mountains. There were more than 100 palaces and houses scattered among the dozens of mountains. It was protected by a large array with a radius of 10,000 miles. The Upper King level Heaven and Earth Divine Array not only had a strong defense, it also had the effect of invisibility. It covered all the buildings in the array. Looking from the outside, one could only see many mountains and forests. There were no palaces or people. The situation of this stronghold was basically the same as the one in the White Jade Empire. They were both protected by the Defense Divine Array. There was a teleportation divine array in the depths of the palaces that led to the vicinity of the Sky Crane Mountain. If there was a difference, it would be that the number of monarch god and god king experts guarding this stronghold was more than the one in the White Jade Empire. There were more than 4,800 monarch gods and 30 god kings. Such a powerful force would be an unstoppable torrent when they attacked the Myriad Demon Alliance in the north in the future. Although the god king commanders guarding this stronghold had not received any news or movements from the Myriad Demon Alliance. However, everyone remained vigilant and focused their attention on guard. Once they found something unusual near the stronghold, the patrolling guards and hidden sentries would immediately report the situation. The 30 God King experts were also ready to lead the troops to battle at any time. However, at this moment, a sesame-sized black dot silently arrived above the stronghold. This black dot was naturally the primordial chaos bell. It hid its tracks and aura. Even if a higher God King passed by nearby, he would not be able to detect its existence. Therefore, it quietly floated above the stronghold and was not discovered by anyone. Ji Tianqing sat in the central secret chamber of the God Clock. He secretly used the God Eye secret technique to pass through the invisible defense divine array to check the situation in the stronghold. With his previous experience, it was a walk in the park for him to do this. After a quarter of an hour, he figured out the situation in the stronghold, including the number of experts and the arrangement of the defenses. Next, it was time to repeat the same trick. The sesame-sized primordial chaos bell suddenly expanded billions of times, turning into a huge bell that covered the sky. It shone with dazzling golden light and smashed down from the sky. At that instant, many godly lords and godly kings in the stronghold witnessed this scene with their own eyes. It was like a golden sun falling from the sky and smashing into the stronghold. Everyone was dumbfounded. They were so scared that they were dumbfounded, and their minds went blank. Even though a few god kings were determined, they returned to their senses very soon. They hurriedly roared out furiously and anxiously, calling for everyone to work together to stop the attack. However, it was too late. Boom! A thunderous boom suddenly exploded between the heavens and the earth, shaking the heavens. Under the full force of the primordial chaos bell, the heaven and earth divine formation that spanned thousands of miles only lasted for a breath before it was smashed into pieces. The peerlessly terrifying force of impact, along with the endless fragments of divine light, burst out in all directions. All the palaces and buildings in the stronghold were destroyed in an instant. Hundreds of mountains within thousands of miles were flattened to the ground. The world was filled with endless dust and divine light. It was chaos. The entire stronghold descended into chaos. More than 900 unlucky godly lords were killed on the spot by the primordial chaos bell. More than 1,000 people were severely injured, but they were lucky to survive. However, this was only the beginning of the disaster. Just as the godly kings roared and called for everyone to gather and work together to stop the enemy's attack, the primordial chaos bell expanded by 2 times and enveloped them. Wang! As a result, the primordial chaos bell enveloped everything within a 20,000-mile radius, sealing the space. The 30 godly kings had a clear division of labor. Most of them waved their weapons and gathered the panicked godly lords to work together to fight back. Even though they had yet to find the enemy and only saw a pitch-black bell coming down, this did not stop them from doing so. They split into more than 20 teams and worked together to resist the suppression of the primordial chaos bell. There were also 2 godly kings. When they realized that a powerful enemy was coming, they immediately took out their communication jade slips to report the situation to abstruse grotto heaven. However, when they sent out their communication jade slips, they realized that the jade slips could not be sent out. The space was completely sealed by the primordial chaos bell. They could not send out any messages, nor could they send any messages from the outside world. In other words, they were isolated from the outside world. Immediately, panic, anxiety, and worry took over the minds of the 2 godly kings. They tried a few times but still could not send out any messages. The 2 of them could only give up temporarily. They hurriedly summoned a few godly kings and entered the depths of the ruins together. They wanted to work together to open the teleportation array in the underground palace. The enemy's strength had exceeded their expectations and imagination. As of now, they could only hope that the teleportation array could bring them out of this place and back to MT Sky Crane. Therefore, 8 godly kings went to the underground palace to open the teleportation array. 22 godly kings led the army into battle. Swoosh! Swoosh! The primordial chaos bell opened 4 spatial passageways. Ao Jining, godly king Wanli, and company led the 4 teams out of the primordial chaos bell world and descended onto the battlefield. They followed Ji Tianqing's instructions and charged into the battlefield from 4 different directions. They killed the enemy like a hot knife through butter. 22 godly kings led more than 3,000 godly kings to launch a counterattack. However, they were suppressed by the power of the primordial chaos bell. It was difficult for them to move and their combat power was greatly reduced. The morale of the two sides was different and the combat power they displayed was also different. Therefore, although the Myriad Demon Alliance had fewer people, their combat power was stronger, and they quickly gained the upper hand. Immediately after, Ji Tianqing and Hu Xinyue also joined the battle. The two peak experts crisscrossed through the battlefield, constantly reaping the lives of god kings one after another. Those middle-level and low-level godly kings were no match for the two of them. In just a short period of time, more than half of the 22 godly kings were killed. Only 9 of them were still holding on bitterly. In addition, Ji Tianqing, Hu Xinyue, Ao Jining, godly king Wanli, and company used their ultimate moves that could destroy heaven and earth. They blasted into the enemy's battle formation. Every ultimate move would kill dozens or hundreds of godly kings and turn them into ashes on the spot. The battle lasted for 15 minutes before it came to an end. More than half of the 3,000 godly kings were killed, and so were the 22 godly kings. The 800 godly kings who were lucky enough to survive were scared out of their wits. They no longer had any will to fight and fled into the underground palace. They wanted to escape through the teleportation array. However, when they entered the underground palace, they realized that the teleportation array had also stopped working. Then, the army of the Myriad Demon Alliance surrounded them and began the final massacre. End of chapter. Chapter 3765. Half an hour later. The battlefield covered by the primordial chaos bell had been reduced to ruins. Within a radius of 20,000 miles, all the mountains and rivers had disappeared, leaving only a desolated land of yellow sand. The war had ended and the stronghold had been completely destroyed. Divine King Wanli, Ao Jining, Hu Xinyue and the others were leading the soldiers to clean up the battlefield. Ji Tianqing stood alone in the sky and looked down silently. The 30 divine kings who were stationed here had been killed. Their godhead fragments and interspatial rings had also fallen into Ji Tianqing's hands. These were the spoils of war that he needed. As for the spoils of war after the 4,000 divine kings were killed, he was not interested in them and left them to the soldiers. Therefore, cleaning up the battlefield after every war was the most exciting moment for the soldiers. Even if they were severely injured and extremely weak, they were still excited and in high spirits. With the generous spoils of war as a reward and stimulation, they were no longer afraid of fighting. Instead, they looked forward to it. This was definitely one of the best ways to raise morale. Another 2 hours passed. Under the leadership of the dozen divine kings, the soldiers finished cleaning up the battlefield. All the spoils of war had been collected and distributed to the divine kings according to their merits. The corpses of the enemies left on the battlefield were also burned by the soldiers. After doing all this, the soldiers returned to the 6 teams and were summoned back to the Divine Bell World by Ji Tianqing to recuperate and heal their injuries. Only Divine King Wanli, Ao Jining and Hu Xinyue stayed behind and followed Ji Tianqing. Our mission has been completed. Next, it's up to the 2 protectors. As he spoke, Ji Tianqing cast a spell and put away the primordial chaos bell. Swoosh! The divine bell shrank rapidly and soon became 1 foot tall. It floated in front of Ji Tianqing. Hu Xinyue cupped her hands and said, "Young master has ordered the 2 protectors to lead the troops to attack a stronghold. It has been 16 hours. They should have completed the mission, right?" Ao Jining nodded in agreement and said, "I will send a message to the 2 protectors to ask about the situation." With that, he sent 2 communication jade slips to the left and right protectors. Ji Tianqing and the others stood in the sky, patiently waiting. A full 100 breaths later, Ao Jining finally received a message from the left and right protectors. After reading the contents of the communication jade slip, he reported to Ji Tianqing, reporting to young master, "The 2 protectors have followed your orders and led the army to attack a stronghold. The situation is just as you expected. The 2 protectors are cautious and careful, and they launched a surprise attack. They will definitely win this battle." However, the other party's resistance was abnormally tenacious, and they were still fighting fiercely. However, the battle was already nearing its end, and he believed that it would end within 2 hours. At that time, the 2 protectors will give you a detailed battle report. After listening to Ao Jining's report, Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said with a solemn expression, They have the upper hand, but they still haven't finished the battle for such a long time. It seemed that the resistance of that stronghold was indeed very strong. Furthermore, the two protectors didn't have supreme-grade divine artifacts in hand, so it was very difficult to stop the other party from asking for help and escaping. Hu Xinyue, Ao Jining, and the Wanli Divine King all nodded in agreement. The Wanli Divine King revealed a bitter smile and said, "Although the two protectors are powerful and will definitely win this battle, however, it is absolutely impossible for them to annihilate all the enemies in the stronghold like us and not leak the news. If young master didn't take action personally, no one would be able to create such a miracle." Although his words seemed to be flattering, they were also stating the truth. Ao Jining and Hu Xinyue felt the same and nodded in agreement. Ji Tianqing didn't say much. After pondering for a moment, he asked, "Ao Jining, where is the fourth stronghold? How far is it from us?" Ao Jining was stunned for a moment and vaguely guessed his thoughts. He quickly replied, "Reporting to young master, the fourth stronghold is in the southeast of the Divine Star Field. It is 20 hours away from us. That stronghold is closest to Sky Crane Mountain." After he finished speaking, Hu Xinyue and he asked at the same time, "Young master, are we going to rush to the fourth stronghold and take advantage of the situation to destroy it?" The Wanli Divine King also guessed this possibility, and immediately looked at Ji Tianqing with bright eyes. Ji Tianqing didn't hide and explained, "When we set off from the Demon City, we split into two groups and each group was in charge of two strongholds. Based on the current situation, we have quickly destroyed two strongholds and didn't expose our whereabouts. However, the two protectors can't annihilate all the enemies and can't keep it a secret. Therefore, the Xuanji Grotto Heaven has already received the news. I guess they will send reinforcements or ask the people in the fourth stronghold to retreat. If we wait for the two protectors to finish the battle and let the soldiers rest for a day before attacking the fourth stronghold, there won't be enough time. Therefore, we must rush over as fast as possible and attack the fourth stronghold." Hu Xinyue thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. She said, "This method is feasible. Our speed is fast enough and we can make use of the time difference. If we can destroy all the experts in the fourth stronghold, it will be easier for us to attack the Xuanji Grotto Heaven in the future." Ji Tianqing didn't waste any more time, and immediately opened the Divine Bell World to let the Wanli Divine King and Ao Jining rest. He brought Hu Xinyue into the central secret room and drove the Divine Bell to the fourth stronghold. The 20-hour journey that Ao Jining spoke of was for him and the majority of the high-level Divine Kings. Ji Tianqing drove the Primordial Chaos Bell, and his speed was unbelievably fast. He only used 6 hours to reach the stronghold. During this process, the left and right protectors indeed sent him a detailed battle report. Of course, the result of the battle was not out of his expectations. The army led by the left and right protectors had indeed achieved an impressive victory. They killed more than 2,200 enemy divine lords and 19 divine king experts. However, they also paid a heavy price. More than 600 divine lords died in battle, and more than 1,300 divine lords were injured. 4 divine kings were killed and 6 divine kings were seriously injured. Even so, more than 2,000 enemy remnants were still able to escape to the vicinity of Sky Crane Mountain through the teleportation formation in the underground palace. At this moment, the army led by the two protectors was still cleaning up the battlefield and dealing with the aftermath. In the battle report that the two protectors presented to Ji Tianqing, they only reported the specific situation and didn't have any intention of asking for credit. Furthermore, the two of them were deeply remorseful that nearly half of the enemy had escaped. Ji Tianqing wasn't disappointed by this. He even encouraged the two protectors and asked them to calm down the soldiers and recuperate in peace. Soon, everyone would join forces to attack the Xuanji Grotto Heaven, and they would still need to work hard. After the two protectors received the reply, they naturally heaved a sigh of relief and were grateful to Ji Tianqing, because they knew clearly in their hearts that their glorious battle results were simply not worth mentioning when compared to the two miracles that Ji Tianqing had created. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 3766. Night fell and the world was dark. Perhaps even the heavens had sensed that the divine star zone was in a state of chaos. As a result, the vast night sky was as dark as ink, and there were barely any stars. Whoosh! A sesame-sized black dot passed through the dark night sky and arrived above a large canyon. On both sides of this 10,000 miles long valley were towering mountains, and in all directions, there were towering mountains and forests. Only a few people knew that this canyon was the fourth stronghold of the Xuanji Grotto heaven. In the past month, many god lords and god kings from the southeast of the Star Source continent had gathered here under the orders of the Xuanji Grotto heaven. They had set up a large number of palaces and mansions here, and set up powerful divine arrays. They were very secretive. In the past month, many experts from various forces had come and set up camp here. As a result, the stronghold's forces continued to grow. As of yesterday, there were already 5,000 godlords and 36 god kings gathered here. Among them, the 4 commanders in the lead were all high divine kings. It was no exaggeration to say that the strength of this stronghold ranked first among the 4 strongholds. It was the most powerful. Everyone was brimming with confidence and complacency. They were waiting for the Xuanji Grotto heaven to give the order to attack the 10,000 Demon Alliance. However, 10 hours ago, an order from the Xuanji Grotto heaven stunned the god kings and thousands of god lords in the stronghold. The sesame-sized black dot floated above the canyon. Looking down from the night sky, one could only see the deep canyon, the flowing river, and the mountains and forests on both sides. But in reality, Ji Tianqing could see through the heaven and earth divine formation with his divine eye secret art. On both sides of the canyon, there were more than 200 palaces and mansions. Around the canyon, there were many divine arrays and hidden sentries. There were still traces of chaotic divine power lingering in those palaces and residences. Of course, he knew that this was the 4th stronghold of the Xuanji Grotto heaven. However, what caused his expression to turn icy cold and his brows to knit together tightly was that this stronghold was extremely quiet and desolate. He could not see the patrolling figures of the guards, nor could he hear the sounds from the stronghold, nor could he sense the powerful aura of a God King expert. Ji Tianqing secretly observed for a long time before he confirmed a fact. This stronghold was already empty. At least several thousand godly lords and dozens of godly kings had hurriedly left this base a few hours ago. As I expected, we're still a step too late. Ji Tianqing sighed regretfully in the central secret chamber of the god clock. Hu Xinyue, who was standing behind him, understood the result when she heard his words. Therefore, she comforted him with a calm tone. Young master, you don't have to be so demanding. The commander of the Enigma Grotto heaven is not an idiot. Since the news of the 3 bases being destroyed has been leaked, they know what to do. You were able to create such a miracle and destroy 2 strongholds in 2 days without leaving a single survivor. This is already inconceivable and shocking. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and sneered with a playful tone. Since they have recalled the rest of the people to the Enigma Grotto heaven, let's charge into the Enigma Grotto heaven and fight to the death. Hu Xinyue frowned and quickly advised, Young master, are you going to the Enigma Grotto heaven now? Aren't you in too much of a hurry? Not only have our soldiers not recovered from their injuries, but the soldiers led by the 2 protectors have also suffered heavy casualties. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, I know all of this. Of course, I won't be so impatient. Even if I want to leave this place, I have to do one thing first. What is it? Hu Xinyue asked instinctively. Ji Tianqing smiled but did not answer. He just silently controlled the primordial chaos bell and expanded it billions of times. Swoosh! In the next moment, the god clock expanded to a radius of 10,000 miles. It was like a golden sun that smashed into the canyon below. Kaboom! With an earth-shattering sound like thunder, the invisible defensive divine formation was smashed to smithereens. Next, the 10,000-mile-long canyon was also smashed into ruins, turning into a desolate plain. The palaces and mansions on both sides of the canyon were naturally destroyed. However, the teleportation divine formation hidden deep underground still existed. Although it was heavily damaged, it could still be used. Therefore, Ji Tianqing found the teleportation divine formation underground and controlled the god clock to destroy it. A moment later, the base was completely destroyed and could no longer be used. Especially the teleportation divine formation. It was completely destroyed and could not be repaired at all. After doing this, Ji Tianqing left in satisfaction. Hu Xinyue finally understood his intention. Destroying this base was to prevent any accidents from happening when they attacked the Enigma Grotto heaven. After all, there was a teleportation divine formation in this base that connected this place to Sky Crane Mountain. If they did not destroy it, the people of the Enigma Grotto heaven could use this formation to their advantage. After leaving the fourth base, Ji Tianqing controlled the primordial chaos bell and disappeared into the night. He did not go to the Enigma Grotto heaven. Instead, he went to meet up with the two guardians. At the same time, Hu Xinyue had obtained Ji Tianqing's permission and could finally announce and spread the news of their glorious achievements. Hu Xinyue was very excited and worked together with Ao Jining to spread the news. The next morning, when Ji Tianqing met up with the two guardians, a piece of shocking news had already spread across the Star Source continent. The Myriad Demon Alliance divided into two groups and arrived at the front line within 2 days. Within 2 days, they destroyed 4 bases of the Enigma Grotto heaven. The acting leader, Long Tian, personally destroyed 2 bases of the Enigma Grotto heaven in a flash. His methods were powerful and miraculous, rarely seen in the world. The 2 bases that were destroyed by Long Tian killed more than 10,000 divine emperors and more than 50 divine kings. None of them survived. Not only were the people in the 2 bases killed, but none of them managed to escape. Even the news could not be sent out. How powerful is the new expert of the Myriad Demon Alliance, Long Tian? How could he create such an unbelievable miracle? Similar news spread quickly across the Star Source continent. Countless divine king experts and forces knew about it. For a time, half of the Star Source continent was in shock. Countless people could not believe the news. Because of this, a shocking wave of discussion broke out. Long Tian's name spread across the Star Source continent overnight. He became an existence that countless experts and experts feared and revered. Of course, the reputation and morale of the Myriad Demon Alliance rose to the peak immediately. On the contrary, the reputation and prestige of the Enigma Grotto heaven fell rapidly within a day. It was extremely weak. Those top forces and divine king experts who had remained neutral and watched the tigers fight on the mountain started to think about a question while they were shocked. The Myriad Demon Alliance led by Long Tian had become a terrifying beast that could devour anyone. Would the leaderless Enigma Grotto heaven be able to withstand the attacks of the Myriad Demon Alliance? Would the Myriad Demon Alliance become the overlord of the Star Source continent soon? Chapter 3767. In the past few days, the news that had spread like wildfire across the Star Source continent was naturally released by the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Although the news did not exaggerate the truth, it was merely embellished on the basis of the truth. However, under the propaganda of the 10,000 Demon Alliance and many other forces, the news quickly spread across the entire continent and caused a huge uproar. The prestige and reputation of the 10,000 Demon Alliance reached the peak rapidly and shocked everyone. However, this was only secondary. What shocked the people the most was the miracle that Long Tian had created. This was also the main point that the 10,000 Demon Alliance emphasized when they released the news. Their goal was simple. They wanted Long Tian's name to spread across the continent and shock everyone. They wanted the people and forces of the entire Star Source continent to know that Long Tian was a peak supreme being comparable to the Luo Ho Alliance Master and the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. He was a super expert who was brave and smart. Moreover, he was someone who could destroy the Xuanji Grotto. As such, in just a few days, Long Tian became a peak supreme being that everyone knew. He was a super expert who was feared and respected. A few months ago, he had traveled north and killed many region masters and supreme beings. He had also made a name for himself in the various regions in the northwest. However, that was just a small matter. His name was only in the 30 regions in the northwest. However, it was different now. The 10,000 Demon Alliance had helped him spread his name across the entire Star Source continent. He had become an expert comparable to the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and the Luo Ho Supreme Being. He could be ranked in the top 3 in the entire continent. As for the 10,000 Demon Alliance helping him spread his name, he only laughed it off and did not take it to heart. This was done by Hu Xinyue and Ao Jining without his permission. However, to him this was not a bad thing. Therefore, he did not interfere in this matter and allowed Ao Jining, and Hushinyue to do what they wanted. In these few days he met up with the two guardians and explained the next plan and goal. Then, he allowed the soldiers to rest and recuperate. In fact, since things had developed to this stage, the next goal was very simple. The 4 strongholds of the Xuanji Grotto had been destroyed and the remaining 5,000 Ser-gods had retreated to the Xuanji Grotto. Next, as long as the soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance recovered from their wounds and adjusted themselves, they would be able to march toward the Xuanji Paradise. Everything they had done before, including the 10,000 Demon Alliance's promotion of the victory and the demoralization of the Mystic Paradise, was to prepare for the upcoming final battle. No matter what the outcome of the battle was, the final battle would determine the outcome. The godly kings and godly lords under the left and right protectors suffered even more casualties. Even after 4 days of recuperation, there was no obvious relief. This was a normal situation. When a divine monarch or divine king was injured, they would need several years or even decades to recover. There was no point in being anxious. Thus, Ji Tianqing sent the left and right protectors into the divine clock world, as well as the 3,000 soldiers under their command, into the divine clock world to recuperate. Other than the 2 groups of soldiers led by him and the 2 guardians, another group of soldiers under the command of the 10,000 Clouds Alliance had been waiting for orders. Ji Tianqing waited at the border of the Divine Star Zone for 3 days to gather the soldiers. 3 days later, in the middle of the night, when the 3rd group of soldiers arrived, the number of soldiers under Ji Tianqing's command had finally reached 10,000 people. This group of soldiers was handed over to Hushinyue and Ao Jining. Although these 5,000 soldiers did not participate in the battle, they had been conserving their strength. Ji Tianqing still asked Hushinyue and Ao Jining to take them into the divine clock world to wait for orders. Then Ji Tianqing drove the primordial chaos bell alone, left the border of the divine star zone, and rushed toward Sky Crane Mountain in the center of the divine star zone. On the surface he looked like he was alone, but in reality, there were more than 10,000 godly lords and dozens of godly kings, hidden in his divine clock world. In addition, there were a few godly kings in his Joqian 10 Absolutes Pagoda, who were also powerful helpers. On the morning of the 4th day, Ji Tianqing arrived near Sky Crane Mountain. He stayed in the central secret chamber of the primordial chaos bell, and did not show himself. He secretly observed the situation of Sky Crane Mountain. The primordial chaos bell shrunk into a speck of dust and hid its tracks. It floated in the sea of clouds and no one could detect it. Ji Tianqing sat in the divine clock and looked at the white sea of clouds in all directions. Not far ahead there was a towering mountain. That huge mountain with a radius of 100 miles stood in the sea of clouds. It looked majestic and mighty, simple and ancient. In the sky above the hurricane there was a huge white light vortex. It was like a bright moon hanging high in the sky. That mountain peak was Sky Crane Mountain. And that huge white light vortex was the entrance to the Xuanji Grotto heaven. Ji Tianqing drove the primordial chaos bell, and silently flew over the sea of clouds. He hid at the peak of Sky Crane Mountain and merged with the ground of the mountain. He could clearly see that there were more than 1,000 godly lords and dozens of godly kings stationed at the peak of Sky Crane Mountain. He could clearly see the clothes, looks, and expressions of those people. But both sides were less than 100 miles apart. Those powerhouses could not discover the primordial chaos bell. Ji Tianqing was not in a hurry to take action. Firstly, the 5,000 soldiers in the divine clock world had yet to recover. Secondly, he had to observe the defenses of Sky Crane Mountain first and understand the situation of the Xuanji Grotto heaven. Under a situation where he did not understand the situation and rashly attacked the Xuanji Grotto heaven, it was very likely that he would suffer a huge loss. Facts proved that Ji Tianqing's carefulness and caution were indeed effective. He hid at the peak of Sky Crane Mountain for 3 days and 3 nights, observing the activity at the peak the entire time. In these 3 days, the guards and godly kings stationed at the peak of Sky Crane Mountain did not change much. But there were many godly kings entering and exiting that white light vortex every day, entering and exiting the Xuanji Grotto heaven. This proved that the Xuanji Grotto heaven was not scared out of their wits by his glorious battle results and scared until they shut down the Xuanji Grotto heaven. Since the Xuanji Grotto heaven's entrance was still open, those godly kings who frequently entered and exited must be carrying out some mission. Of course, only a very small number of godly kings entered and exited. Clearly, they were carrying out orders and passing information. Most of the godly kings did not appear after entering the Xuanji Grotto heaven. Ji Tianqing did not need to guess to know that they must be the godly kings under the Xuanji Grotto heaven's command, rushing over to protect their master after receiving the Xuanji Grotto heaven's edict. He roughly estimated that there were more than 30 godly kings who rushed over to help and entered the Xuanji Grotto heaven in these 3 days. In addition to the previous stronghold and the godly kings already in the Xuanji Grotto heaven, there were more than 200 godly kings. As for the Myriad Demon Alliance, there were less than 100 godly kings at the very most, just over 60. Regarding this, Ji Tianqing felt deeply helpless. The Xuanji Grotto heaven is indeed the overlord of the Star Source continent. Even if the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor is not here, they can still gather 200 godly kings to help. The number of godly kings in the entire continent is only slightly over 1,000, and the Xuanji Grotto heaven can actually gather 20% of them. One can imagine that if the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was here, even gathering 300 to 500 godly kings would not be a problem. Under such circumstances, who would dare to go against the Xuanji Grotto heaven? Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 3768. Xuanji Grotto heaven had gathered close to 200 godly kings in the Grotto heaven, waiting for the final battle. Once the Myriad Demon League soldiers entered, they would definitely be ambushed from all sides. Xuanji Grotto heaven had 3 times as many godly kings as the Myriad Demon League, and more godly emperors. At that time, Xuanji Grotto heaven, who had the advantage in numbers, would most likely win and kill the Myriad Demon League soldiers. Ji Tianqing was deeply worried about this. However, he did not feel despair, and he would not give up on attacking. After all, the Myriad Demon League had an advantage, and that was that they had peak godly king experts, but Xuanji Grotto heaven did not. Ji Tianqing believed that as long as he handled it well, he could still destroy Xuanji Grotto heaven. After observing for 3 days and 3 nights, Ji Tianqing had a rough understanding of Xuanji Grotto heaven's situation. He decided to attack. Therefore, he sent a message to the left and right protectors Hu Xinyue, Aojining, and the others. His voice rang out in the divine bell world, and the tens of thousands of soldiers heard it clearly. Instantly, the tens of thousands of soldiers who were in the middle of healing or meditating all woke up. Everyone ended their cultivation and recuperation. They put on their armor and took out their divine weapons, preparing for the upcoming battle. Everyone's body was quickly accumulating divine power and emitting a strong fighting spirit. At the same time, Ji Tianqing controlled the primordial chaos bell and flew silently toward the white light vortex in the sky. At that moment, 2 intermediate godly kings flew over from the sea of clouds in the distance, heading straight for the white light vortex. Looking at the dusty appearance of the 2 godly kings, it was obvious that they had come from a remote area to help Xuanji Grotto heaven fight against the Myriad Demon League. Ji Tianqing chose to enter Xuanji Grotto heaven at this moment, because of the arrival of the 2 intermediate godly kings. That's right. He wanted to use the 2 intermediate godly kings to sneak into Xuanji Grotto heaven. This was something that he had planned for a long time. At the same time, Hu Xinyue, Aojining, and the others, as well as Xuanji Grotto heaven, did not expect this. Everyone thought that with his army of 10,000, he would definitely attack the Xuanji Grotto with a murderous aura. At that time, he would display the strength of a peak divine king and forcefully break through the entrance of the Xuanji Grotto. He would then charge in domineeringly. Meanwhile, the Xuanji Wonderland had long prepared for it. They would surely make him suffer a great loss. Unfortunately, Ji Tianqing would never do that. That was the stupidest and most dangerous thing to do. Swoosh! Swish! In the blink of an eye, the 2 mid-level divine kings, who were wearing beast skin capes and armor, arrived near the white light vortex. The 2 of them stopped and scanned the area. When they saw the divine lord guards on the mountain peak, they could not help but exclaim in amazement. As expected of the Xuanji Grotto, the security is so tight. Not only are there over 1,000 divine lord guards, there are also over a dozen divine kings standing guard here. Just as the 2 of them were sighing in their hearts, 2 high-level god kings walked out of the 6 god kings guarding the entrance to the cave and came forward to interrogate them. "Sir, where are you from? What business do you have in the Xuanji Grotto?" The two high-level god kings in golden armor had their hands on the hilts of the sabers at their waists as they looked at the two visitors with dignified gazes. Ji Tianqing was not unfamiliar with these two high-level god kings guarding the entrance to the grotto. One of them was an 8th-degree divine king, one of the divine generals of the Xuanji Grotto. Back then, when Ji Tianqing first came to the Xuanji Grotto, the divine general was one of the people who had injured him besides the heartless divine king. However, now that Ji Tianqing saw him again, he did not have the intention to take revenge. He controlled the primordial chaos bell and took advantage of the time when the two of them were conversing to approach silently. "Sir Divine General, we are the domain lords of the Moonslang Fallen Maple region. We have come on the orders of the Xuanji Grotto." The two mid-level divine kings bowed respectfully and introduced themselves to the divine general guarding the entrance, as well as the purpose of their visit. The divine general's dignified expression immediately softened. He nodded slightly and said, "Please show me your identity tokens and the orders issued by the general." After he finished speaking, he saw that the two middle-level god kings were stunned for a moment before he explained, "Please cooperate with me, domain lords. The situation has been tense recently. I am just doing my job for the safety of the Xuanji Grotto. I hope you can understand." Although the Xuanji Grotto maintained its usual confidence, even when the Myriad Demon Alliance's army was about to arrive, the Xuanji Grotto did not close. However, the number of soldiers guarding the grotto's entrance had obviously increased by several times compared to before. Those who entered and exited the grotto had to undergo strict inspection and interrogation. This was to prevent the Myriad Demon Alliance from sneaking into the Xuanji Grotto during the chaos. The two domain lords understood this point and quickly nodded. "Don't worry, Sir Divine General. Of course we understand and cooperate." As they spoke, the two domain lords quickly took out their identity tokens and the special jade slips that the Xuanji Grotto used to issue orders and handed them to the divine general guarding the entrance for inspection. The divine general guarding the entrance and the upper-level god king did not dare to be careless. They really took the tokens and jade slips and carefully checked and compared them. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ji Tianqing steered the primordial chaos bell and silently flew behind one of the domain lords, sticking it to his beast skin cloak. In any case, the two domain lords looked tired and travel-worn. Their cloaks and robes were already covered in dust. Even if there was a speck of black dust, no one would notice. Moreover, this speck of black dust was invisible. It did not have any energy waves. After a while, the divine general guarding the entrance confirmed the identities of the two domain lords. Only then did he return the tokens and jade slips to them. He reminded them, "Domain lords, your identities have been verified. You may enter the Xuanji Grotto and report to the Grand Marshal. Please remember, after entering the Xuanji Grotto, do not wander around. There will be people inside to receive you and bring you to the Grand Marshal or Commander Qin." The two domain lords came from remote areas. This was the second time in their lives that they had come to the Xuanji Grotto. Naturally, they were very cautious. The two did not dare to be careless about the divine general's warning. After listening carefully, they nodded and made a statement. Next, the divine general waved his hand and cast a spell to open the entrance to the grotto. Whoosh! A door opened in the white vortex that led to the Xuanji Grotto. The two domain masters tidied up their clothes and appearances before flying into the white light vortex at a moderate pace. Whoosh! The blinding white light swallowed the two figures. In the next moment, the two domain lords entered the Xuanji Grotto and appeared on an ancient divine rock that was tens of thousands of feet wide. This divine rock was like a millstone. Its surface was flat and filled with mysterious runes. Around the rock were hundreds of godly lords guarding it. There were also 12 godly kings in a formation, ready to deal with any unexpected situations. Seeing this scene, the two domain leaders felt even more reverence and acted even more cautiously. Chapter 3769. The Divine General did not lie to the two domain lords. There were indeed a few envoys waiting around the rock. One of the envoys came forward and asked about the two domain lords' identities before bringing them to meet the War Dragon King. During this process, the primordial chaos bell controlled by Ji Tianqing stuck to one of the realm master's cloaks in the form of transparent dust. There were hundreds of godly lords and 12 godly kings guarding the rock. The 12 godly kings were all upper godly kings. Therefore, he did not dare to act rashly to avoid exposing himself. When the 2 domain lords left the divine stone disk under the guidance of the emissary, he was still observing the situation around the divine stone. Seeing the countless invisible divine formations and the traps around the rock, he frowned, his eyes flashing coldly. Kakik, the War Dragon King and Qin Yu are truly despicable. They actually buried so many traps and formations around the entrance. Once I lead the 10,000 Demon Alliance soldiers and break through the entrance to the Xuanji Grotto Heaven. When we step into the Xuanji Grotto Heaven, we will fall into layers of traps and divine formations. At that time, only the upper godly kings will be able to survive. Most of the soldiers will be killed. No wonder the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was not in the Xuanji Grotto Heaven, and the War Dragon King and Qin Yu were severely injured. Unfortunately, I will have to disappoint you this time. How can I lead the 10,000 Demon Alliance soldiers into the Xuanji Grotto Heaven? Fortunately, Ji Tianqing had already planned and prepared. If it were anyone else, the 10,000 Demon Alliance would definitely be in dire straits. At this thought, Ji Tianqing felt both fear and relief. The Xuanji Grotto Heaven was huge. In Ji Tianqing's impression, it was the largest and most resource-rich grotto heaven on the Star Source continent. The entire grotto heaven was more than 3 million miles wide and could accommodate billions of living beings. It was a small world. In this grotto heaven there were green mountains and clear waters, icy lakes and snowy plains, as well as deserts and mountains. The divine power of heaven and earth was extremely rich. With a sweep of his divine sense, he could find the resources he needed for cultivation. Occasionally, he would even come across rare treasures of heaven and earth. Ji Tianqing knew that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had taken over the mystical paradise because of its size and abundance of resources. At the same time, the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor had also modified and nurtured the Xuanji Grotto over the past 20,000 years. Most of the cultivation resources he had plundered from all over the continent were scattered in the Enigma Grotto. As a result, many resources could be regenerated and multiplied, making the mysterious grotto's resources even more abundant. Just like how Ji Tianqing cultivated the 5 elements world, he would invest hundreds of billions of cultivation resources every once in a while to transform the 5 elements world. Over time, those incomparably precious cultivation resources caused the spirit chi of the 5 elements world to be extremely abundant. Then even more resources were born, and it became a paradise for cultivators. Swoosh! Swish! The 2 region masters followed the emissary and flew high up in the sky for an hour before they arrived at the Golden Dragon Mountain in the middle of the grotto heaven. The 100,000-mile-long Golden Dragon Mountain was pieced together by the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, after moving thousands of mountain peaks. It was a man-made divine range of heaven and earth that gathered the divine power of the entire mysterious grotto. It was a first-class cultivation paradise. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's cave abode and divine palace were built on the Golden Dragon Mountain. At this moment, the hundreds of palaces and mansions in the Golden Dragon Mountain were filled with people. Some of them were the natives of the mysterious grotto, while others were the famous Golden Dragon Guards. Most of them were the region masters and god kings from all over the continent, as well as the soldiers they led. The Golden Dragon Mountain was now a gathering of true experts. The 2 region masters were about to meet the War Dragon King. Ji Tianqing was worried that the other party would notice something was amiss, so he alighted in advance. When they arrived at the Golden Dragon Mountain, he stealthily left the region master's cape with the primordial chaos bell. Hence, the 2 region masters followed the emissary to meet the War Dragon King. Ji Tianqing steered the primordial chaos bell and stealthily entered the Golden Dragon Mountain. He roamed around and gathered information. The Golden Dragon Mountain was too big. It spanned 100,000 miles. Fortunately, the palaces and mansions were not scattered throughout the entire mountain range. Instead, they were concentrated at the highest point of the mountain range. Even so, the 800-plus palaces and residences that were scattered all over the place still occupied an area of 20,000 miles in circumference. This was a good thing for Ji Tianqing. At least it would be easier for him to gather information. Originally, he only needed to release his divine consciousness to cover an area of 20,000 miles and see everything clearly. However, there were tens of thousands of godly lords and hundreds of god kings gathered in this area. If he released his divine consciousness openly, he would quickly expose his whereabouts and alert the other party. More importantly, he was still uncertain about one thing. It was extremely important and could even affect the outcome of the war. That was the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor in the mysterious grotto. The Myriad Demon Alliance had been investigating this matter, and confirmed that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was not there. Ji Tianqing also knew that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's true body would not return so quickly. However, if he did not investigate this matter personally, he would not be at ease. Therefore, Ji Tianqing used the primordial chaos bell as a cover to investigate the palaces and mansions. At the same time, he was also searching for the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's aura. In other words, he was searching for the aura of a peak god king. As long as there was no peak god king in the mysterious grotto, he was confident that he could destroy it. However, if there was a peak god king in the mysterious grotto, regardless of whether the other party was the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor or not, his confidence would be greatly reduced. There was no sun in the mysterious grotto. Naturally, there was no day and night. 9 divine pearls floated high in the sky. They continuously released divine light and illuminated millions of miles. The palaces and mansions in the Golden Dragon Mountain were always bathed in the glorious divine light. Tens of thousands of godly lords were obediently waiting in the palaces and mansions. They were circulating their energy and conserving their energy as they waited for orders. Close to 200 God King experts were also meditating and adjusting their breathing quietly. They were guarding their respective officers and soldiers, carrying out their respective orders. Although tens of thousands of experts were gathered in the Golden Dragon Mountain, it was extremely quiet and not noisy at all. Only the Golden Dragon Guards were constantly patrolling and monitoring the surroundings for abnormalities. In such a tense and gloomy atmosphere, Ji Tianqing was like a formless spirit. He wandered around the palaces and mansions without restraint. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days passed. No one discovered anything unusual or his presence. At the same time, he secretly searched over 800 palaces and mansions. He had a clear understanding of the trump cards of the mysterious grotto. There were 23,460 god monarchs and 212 god king experts gathered here. However, there was no peak god king aura or Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. The general of the mysterious grotto was the severely injured and weak war dragon king. Next was the governor of the Golden Dragon Guards, Qin Yu. This result made Ji Tianqing feel at ease. After pondering for a long time, he decided to take action. Today the battle would begin. Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 3770. Although Ji Tianqing controlled the primordial chaos bell and hid in the headquarters of Xuanji Grotto Heaven, there were palaces and residences all around. Within a radius of 20,000 miles, there were over 20,000 Sir Gods and over 200 God Kings gathered. If he directly summoned over 10,000 soldiers to attack the palaces and residences, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. The soldiers under the command of Xuanji Grotto Heaven would definitely be scared out of their wits and be dumbfounded. But that was all. Other than scaring the enemy, it might not cause any substantial damage, let alone establish the foundation for victory. After all, the 20,000 over Sir Gods and God Kings gathered here were all well rested and unharmed. Even if they were shocked for a moment, they would panic. But under the command of many God Kings, they would be able to react in an instant. Then they would surround the 1,000 Demon Alliance's soldiers and gradually force their way in, killing all the 1,000 Demon Alliance's soldiers. So what Ji Tianqing wanted to do was to plunge the headquarters of Xuanji Grotto Heaven into chaos. He also wanted to create huge casualties and panic for these Sir Gods and God Kings who were in full condition and had normal combat strength. It would be best if he could execute a decapitation operation and kill a few leaders and such figures. That would be even better. After thinking of a plan, Ji Tianqing started to look for targets. Ji Tianqing's first target was called Qingfeng Courtyard. This courtyard occupied an area of 10,000 feet, and was built on the ridge of the Golden Dragon Mountain. Compared to the other residences and palaces, the terrain here was lower and was at the edge. Very obviously, this courtyard was not too important. The people who lived here in the past were just soldiers of the Golden Dragon Guards. Currently, there were over 100 Sir Gods and one God King powerhouse living in the courtyard. These people came from a region in the south of the Star Source continent. The 4th degree realm God King was the Deputy Region Master. Very obviously, the Region Master of this region was more cunning. He did not want to offend Xuanji Grotto Heaven, so he could only send people to help. But he said that he had something important to do and could not leave, so he sent the Deputy Region Master to bring over 100 Sir Gods to help. This bit of help was not enough to get the attention of Xuanji Grotto Heaven. Therefore, after these people entered the Xuanji Grotto, they were placed in the outermost courtyard. These people had already been recuperating here for half a month. During this time, they did nothing but meditate in their rooms all day long. They were just waiting for the day when the Grand Marshal's order was passed down. Then, everyone would go into battle. In this half a month, other than the first day when an envoy led them here and settled them in the Cool Breeze courtyard, no one else came. The Deputy Region Master and the hundreds of Sir Gods felt like they had been abandoned and ignored. They were very angry. If it were not for the Deputy Region Master's strong efforts to suppress and persuade them, the hundreds of Sir Gods would have become deserters. Of course, this was just a thought. Now that they had entered the Enigma Grotto, they had no choice but to leave. They couldn't even run away. At that moment, more than 100 Sir Gods were still meditating in various rooms. The Deputy Region Master was in a secret chamber deep underground, cultivating peacefully. Inside the gloomy secret room, there was a faint divine light that was filled with a dense divine aura. Suddenly, a slight spatial fluctuation came from the corner of the secret room. Under normal circumstances, the Deputy Region Master might have sensed it. But at that moment, he was cultivating and in the Enigma Grotto, so he was very relaxed and did not have any vigilance. Therefore, he did not notice the unusual spatial fluctuation, nor did he know that there was an extra person in the secret room. Without a sound, a handsome figure appeared from a dark corner and floated behind the Deputy Region Master. This young man from the Dragon Clan in a white robe had a handsome face and sharp eyebrows. His eyes were as vast as the sea of stars. Even if he did not show any divine aura, he gave people a sense of unfathomable majesty and dominance. The 5 senses and 6 senses of a divine king were far superior to that of an ordinary divine spirit. The Deputy Region Master finally became alert and realized that something was wrong. He forced himself to stop cultivating and was about to shout. However, a broad and powerful palm suddenly covered his head. A silent but powerful force passed through the top of his head and blasted into his mind. Kaboom! In the Deputy Region Master's mind, there was a thunderous explosion. His consciousness instantly fell into darkness and he lost consciousness. Although he was still sitting cross-legged in the middle of the secret room, he did not look any different, not even a scar. But in fact, his mind had been destroyed, and his godhead was shattered. He was already dead. The young man in the white robe killed the Deputy Region Master in seconds. His figure became transparent, blurred and soon disappeared. A moment later, he left the breeze yard and sneaked into another house nearby. From beginning to end, there was no unusual sound or aura in the breeze yard. Naturally, no one noticed anything unusual. Next to the breeze yard, there was another house of similar size called. The name was not important. Anyway, there was a divine king and more than 70 divine emperors living in this house. They were also a group of marginal people. Although they were not the region masters of a region, they were the elites of a first-class force in the south. In the area they were in, they were lofty and honorable figures. Wherever they went, they would be surrounded by attendants, and they were extremely honorable. But unfortunately, after coming to the Xuanji Cave Heaven, they could only sit on the bench. In the past 20 days, they had seen too many experts and superiors and deeply felt their insignificance. Therefore, these people were full of energy. In the upcoming war, they wanted to kill the enemy courageously, make contributions, and win the favor of the Xuanji Cave Heaven. However, it was a pity that Ji Tianqing had shown the leader of the sect master what it meant by dying before achieving victory in battle. The sect master was in the secret room thinking about how to stand out in the war and let the Grand Marshal know him. Suddenly, a white figure appeared out of thin air in the study room. The sect master just realized that something was wrong. He was instantly alert and turned his head to look behind him. Unfortunately, he only saw a pair of calm, cold, and deep eyes and a jade-like hand. Then he lost consciousness and fell into a deep sleep forever. Even at the moment of his death, the sect master still didn't know who had killed him. He was even more confused as to who would dare to assassinate him in the Xuanji Wonderland. It did not make sense. He was just an insignificant person. He would not compete with anyone for credit, nor would he block anyone's path to promotion and wealth. How could he be so underhanded? With so many questions and puzzlement, the sect master passed away. The dozens of divine emperors under his command were still in various rooms in the house, actively preparing for war, cultivating and working hard. Wonderful book house. Chapter 3771. For an entire day, 24 hours, Ji Tianqing was busy. His invisible figure traveled through the Golden Dragon Mountain range, quietly entering and exiting the various residences and palaces. Although the hundreds of palaces and residences were filled with people, but inside the majority of the houses, there were only Divine Lord realm experts and no Divine King realm powerhouses. Therefore, Ji Tianqing ignored the residences and palaces that only had divine lords and specifically targeted the residences with divine kings. He was only one person. If he wanted to greatly weaken the mystical grotto's combat power in the shortest amount of time, this was the only way. Assassinate as many divine kings as possible. Not only would this reduce the number of divine kings, it would also cause many divine lords to temporarily lose their commander and leader. After all, these divine lords came from all over the world. They came from various domains of the Star Source continent and belonged to different factions. Even if they were nominally subordinates of the mystical grotto, they would not directly listen to the orders of the Battle Dragon King and Qinyu. They needed their leader to relay the orders. Ji Tianqing assassinated their leader. For a short period of time, no one would notice anything amiss. Once the battle began and the Battle Dragon King and Qinyu gave the order to attack, they would discover that the order could not be transmitted smoothly. At that time, the 20,000 divine lords in the sky of the mystical grotto would fall into chaos. The result could be imagined. Within a day, Ji Tianqing assassinated more than 80 divine kings. Among these divine kings, most were middle divine kings. Only a few were lower divine kings and upper divine kings. These divine kings were not from the mystical grotto's headquarters. They were basically the domain lords of various domains, the elites of various peak factions. The number of divine lord experts they led was more than 15,000. In addition, it was worth mentioning that these 80 divine kings were not very strong, but Ji Tianqing did not mind. Every time he killed a divine king, he would plunder their divine spark fragments and interspatial rings. In this way, after a busy day, his harvest was terrifying. Of course, now was not the time to count the spoils of war. This had to be left for later. Currently, there were already a dozen divine lords in their residences who realized that they had lost contact with their leaders. Some of the more impatient divine lords violently broke open the doors to secret rooms and study rooms. Then they discovered that their leader had died in a very strange and bizarre manner. He had died silently. Instantly, those Sir Gods fell into a great panic and were out of their wits. Many people were guessing who had killed their leader. Most importantly, this was the headquarters of the Enigma Grotto, a place where experts gathered. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it was the safest place on the Star Source continent. Who was it that quietly killed their leader? For a time, countless divine lords were in a state of panic. Everyone had different opinions. Some of the more imaginative ones even guessed that an expert from the Xuanji Grotto had killed their commander. As for the reason, he didn't know. There was no reason. In any case, this was the mysterious paradise. Other than experts like the Battle Dragon King, Qinyu, and the divine general guarding the entrance, who could assassinate the other divine kings silently. Thankfully, there were many divine lords who were able to maintain their rationality. Realizing that the situation was not good, they quickly went to find the emissaries and reported the news to them. hoping that the experts of the Xuanji Grotto would be able to investigate the matter. Even if the Battle Dragon King and Qin Yu's statuses were too high, they would not be alarmed by this matter. Sending a few Golden Dragon Guard commanders to deal with this matter was only natural. After all, the news had already spread. Not only did the Sir Gods in the palaces and mansions fall into panic and chaos, the news spread in all directions and quickly alerted even more mansions and palaces. As a result, in a short 4 hours, 50 to 60 forces discovered that their leader had been assassinated. Without a doubt, the matter had completely blown up and exploded. Dozens of palaces and mansions fell into chaos. The Sir Gods were restless and discussed in panic. The news could not be covered up and quickly spread throughout the entire Golden Dragon Mountain range. Even the unscathed God Kings were frightened out of their wits. They were filled with fear and unease. In such a situation, many experts and Sir Gods were suspicious and wary of each other. Who would have the mind to prepare for war? Of course, now that the matter had been exposed, everyone became vigilant and uneasy. Ji Tianqing naturally could not make a move. He temporarily hid in the Primal Chaos Primordial Bell and monitored the highest palace on the mountain peak. The Battle Dragon King, Qin Yu, and the generals of the mysterious grotto were frequently entering and exiting the palace. Obviously, the Battle Dragon King, Qin Yu, and the others had also received the news. As long as one was not a fool, they would understand how serious this matter was. Soon, Qin Yu personally led 2 Golden Dragon Guard commanders and hurried to the palace where the incident happened. Seeing Qin Yu appear, Ji Tianqing's eyes suddenly lit up and became interested. This guy fell into the void back then and was still alive. He is considered lucky. Now that his injuries have not healed, his strength is still very weak. If I can kill this guy before the war, it will save me a lot of trouble. With this thought in mind, Ji Tianqing controlled the Primal Chaos Primordial Bell and quietly followed behind Qin Yu and the others. After a while, Qin Yu and the 2 Golden Dragon Guard commanders arrived at the palace where the incident happened. The 3 experts looked around and saw dozens of palaces around them. They were all in a hubbub of voices and were in a state of panic. There were even thousands of divine lords who demanded an explanation from the Xuanji Grotto Heaven out of anger. If they could not come up with a reasonable explanation, they would not be able to accept the bizarre death of their leader, let alone fight for the mysterious grotto. At this moment, who those divine lord experts were loyal to was clear as day. Seeing the crowd clamoring incessantly, the Golden Dragon Guards who rushed over after hearing the news suppressed those divine lords with their foreheads covered in sweat. Qin Yu was so angry that his face was livid, his entire body trembling in anger. He really wanted to throw a tantrum, destroy the heaven and earth, and then ask loudly, who the fuck did this? But very unfortunately, as the deputy commander of the mysterious grotto, he absolutely could not do so. He could only be patient, suppress his anger, and carefully examine the scene of the crime. Looking for clues, Qin Yu was indeed worthy of being a peak 8th level Divine King expert. His vision was like a torch and he was rich in experience. He only used 100 breaths of time to finish investigating a palace and gave a conclusion. To be able to assassinate a middle-level Divine King silently without alerting anyone, without leaving any clues, and without any wounds. This is definitely done by an 8th level or 9th level Divine King expert. The 2 Golden Dragon Guard commanders nodded repeatedly to express their agreement. But the courtyard full of Divine Lord experts had cold and indifferent expressions. There were even some extremely daring and angry true lovers who even shouted at the top of their lungs. Do we still need you to investigate? We already guessed it long ago. Isn't this obvious? Chapter 3772. Qin Yu almost exploded in anger. As the Honorable Golden Dragon Guard Governor, he was actually ridiculed by a mere Divine Lord in public. How infuriating was this? If it was a normal day, he would have slapped that person into pieces. But at this moment he couldn't do that. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, he had to endure. He took a deep breath and pretended that he didn't hear that sentence. He said to the 2 Golden Dragon Guard commanders, "There are too many places where the incident happened. Let's split up and check the scene as soon as possible." The two Golden Dragon Guard commanders obeyed and hurriedly left to check the other palaces and houses. Although Qin Yu knew that this matter was very strange and made him and Battle Dragon King extremely shocked, even if he investigated carefully, he wouldn't be able to find any results. But he had to do it in front of the 10,000 divine lords. At that time he still had to discuss countermeasures with Battle Dragon King and think of a way to end this matter. He had to appease these 10,000 divine lords. Otherwise the future war would be worrying. Swish! Qin Yu frowned with a gloomy face. While thinking about this matter, he flew to another palace. The courtyard was filled with divine monarch experts. Looking at Qin Yu's departing figure, they all revealed dissatisfied expressions and eyes. But due to Qin Yu's prestige, no one said anything. No one dared to follow him and ask. This made things convenient for Ji Tianxing. He quietly followed Qin Yu. When Qin Yu flew to the space between the two palaces, above a lush forest, he finally made his move. Swish! Suddenly, without any warning, a black shadow descended from the originally calm sky. Qin Yu was still thinking about something and was frowning in distress. He wasn't on guard at all. He was flying in the sky. Why did everything turn black and fall into a dark world? Who? Which bastard? Qin Yu subconsciously took out his divine saber. As he cursed, he slashed at the dark walls around him. However, when the dazzling saber light slashed at those dark barriers, there was a muffled bang 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 sound, but there was no effect. He suddenly understood something and turned pale with fright, his eyes glaring angrily. I understand now. It's you. It's you bastard who assassinated so many divine kings. Qin Yu, who was in the dark space with a radius of 10,000 li, roared with murderous intent. However, even after searching the entire dark space, he still couldn't find the culprit. Only a low male voice came from above his head. You're not that stupid. You finally understand. This voice was somewhat unfamiliar. Qin Yu frowned as he pondered. Whose voice was this? Unfortunately, he didn't know the answer, so he shouted coldly, Who are you? Why did he betray the Xuanji Grotto? Do you know what kind of sin this is? I will definitely report this to His Majesty Dragon Emperor. No matter who you are or what your background is, you will suffer His Majesty Dragon Emperor's wrath. In the darkness, the voice sounded again, and the tone was rather mocking. Haha, don't use the Dragon Emperor to scare me. He's not in the Xuanji Grotto. Moreover, you're about to die and you don't know my identity. Who can report to the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor? You! Qin Yu's anger surged wildly, his killing intent overflowing to the heavens. Through these few sentences, he was even more certain that this person was from the Xuanji Utopia. However, he really couldn't figure out who this person was. Who had such strength, reason, and motive to betray the Xuanji Utopia like this? Thinking of this, Qin Yu decided to continue probing. He said coldly, Bastard, even if you hide, I won't be able to see through your identity. However, you've attacked here, and there are restless divine lords nearby, as well as my golden dragon guards. Now, they must have noticed something amiss and will quickly report to the Grand Marshal. The voice sounded again in the darkness, and it said with a sneer, Since I've attacked, how can I expose myself so easily? There's such a huge dark world inside this divine artifact. However, in reality, the divine artifact has shrunk to the size of a speck of dust, and is hiding in the ground. Those divine lords and golden dragon guards only know that you suddenly disappeared, but they don't know what happened. By the time the War Dragon King finds out about this, your ashes will already be cold. Hearing these words, Qin Yu was naturally filled with anger. However, after confirming that the traitor wasn't the War Dragon King, he heaved a sigh of relief. He still wanted to say something, but the voice didn't speak again. Then, an invisible divine aura descended from all directions, and a majestic power that could suppress heaven and earth crushed Qin Yu. Even though Qin Yu was prepared and powerful, he was still injured by the terrifying pressure, and he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. His divine power instantly became chaotic, and his combat power dropped drastically. His movements were also greatly restricted. Even though he was in danger, he didn't panic. He hurriedly used his energy to resist the divine aura, and he held his saber vigilantly, in case the other party suddenly attacked. However, Qin Yu still underestimated the other party's strength and methods. Whoosh! In the darkness, a dazzling golden sword light suddenly appeared, and it carried the sword essence of the heavenly sword and attacked. Feeling the familiar sword essence and divine power aura, Qin Yu's expression changed drastically, and his eyes widened like copper bells. It's you. How is it possible, Long Tian? How can it be you? Without a doubt, Qin Yu recognized the true identity of the traitor. It was Long Tian. However, he couldn't believe it and he couldn't accept this result. Didn't Long Tian lead the Myriad Demon Alliance's army and approach Xuanji Grotto Heaven? How could he sneak into Xuanji Grotto Heaven and assassinate so many divine kings? Damn bastard, how did he do it? At this moment, many thoughts flashed through Qin Yu's mind. However, he didn't care about the truth and could only wave his saber with all his might to block that dazzling sword light. Kaboom! In the next instant, the sacred golden sword light struck Qin Yu, shattering the saber light he used, and sent him flying. Piff, while he was still in midair, Qin Yu was already vomiting blood wildly, and his internal organs were shattered. Even if he was at his peak, he was not Ji Tianxing's match, let alone now that his old injuries had not healed. Before he could land on the ground, thousands of dazzling sword auras suddenly attacked him from all directions in the darkness. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Thousands of sword lights crisscrossed as fast as lightning like a sword net, and also like a hurricane. Qin Yu was in the middle, resisting with incomparable difficulty. Very soon, he was minced until his flesh was dripping with blood, and he was riddled with wounds. If it was a great battle in the outside world, he would definitely be able to execute all kinds of divine abilities and ultimate skills, and utilize all kinds of divine Tao laws. This battle would also definitely startle heaven and earth, destroying the commotion within a radius of 100,000 miles. However, very unfortunately, he fell into a trap from the start and lost the initiative. Being suppressed inside the Chaos Primordial Bell, even if he had tremendous ability and methods, he could not unleash 30% of it. His defeat was already destined. End of this chapter. Chapter 3773. Ji Tianxing and Qin Yu fought inside the primordial chaos bell for half an hour. In the end, Qin Yu ended up dead and his Tao dissipated. His body was destroyed, turned to ashes. Only over 20 divine persona fragments, an interspatial ring, and several divine artifacts were left. Among them was a high-grade king-class divine saber, a damaged high-grade king-class divine armor, as well as a high-grade king-class divine warship. And Ji Tianxing paid an extremely small price, only expending a lot of divine power, not even injured at all. The specific process did not need to be described in detail. Anyway, only Ji Tianxing and Qin Yu two people knew. Except, Qin Yu's heart was still filled with anger and unwillingness until the moment he died. He hated himself for being careless, actually not expecting Long Tian to be so audacious, actually daring to infiltrate Xuanji Grotto Heaven. And what made him feel unreconciled was that even though he was killed, he could not spread the news. This way his death was worthless. Battle Dragon King and Xuanji Grotto Heaven's powerhouses still did not guard against Long Tian's existence, and might be assassinated by Long Tian. But Qin Yu had no other choice. He could only carry endless regret and unwillingness and fall into silence forever. Swoosh! After Ji Tianxing put away the spoils of war, he quickly put away the primordial chaos bell and appeared in the dense forest. Although he used the primordial chaos bell to conceal his aura, killing Qin Yu inside the god bell should not attract attention. But the current Golden Dragon Mountain range had already fallen into chaos. Countless divine king powerhouses were alarmed and were currently scouting and searching everywhere. Therefore, he could only end the battle quickly to avoid being discovered. After putting away the god bell, Ji Tianxing concealed himself in the dense forest, silently observing the nearby situation. At the same time, he was still considering in his mind, who should he assassinate next? Should he continue to assassinate those divine kings in the chaos, or kill Battle Dragon King in one spurt of energy? Now that Qin Yu was dead, the commander-in-chief overseeing Xuanji Grotto Heaven was only left with Battle Dragon King. Furthermore, Battle Dragon King was seriously injured and had not recovered until now. It was the best time to kill him. Once Battle Dragon King was killed too, Xuanji Grotto Heaven would truly be a group of dragons without a leader. This battle was going to be an easy victory for them. However, at this moment, a deep and dignified voice came from above Ji Tianqing's head. No wonder you can cause such a big mess. So it's because of you, you bastard. The deep voice of the middle-aged man was filled with anger and killing intent. Even though the palaces and residences in the surroundings were in a state of chaos, a boiling cauldron of voices, it was extremely noisy. However, the voice that was filled with killing intent still entered Ji Tianqing's ears very clearly. What followed was a biting cold murderous intent that locked onto him. Ji Tianqing subconsciously raised his head and saw 4 God King experts standing in the air above the forest. 2 of them were wearing golden armor and golden dragon cloaks. They were obviously the commanders of the Golden Dragon Guards. And the 2 leading God Kings, Ji Tianqing actually recognized them. The one who spoke was the Battle Dragon King, clad in the purple dragon divine armor and a crown on his head. And beside the Battle Dragon King was a burly middle-aged man in a blood-red long robe. He was the Chongqi tribe's patriarch Xue Shang. I've been discovered. This was the first thought that flashed through Ji Tianqing's mind. Originally, he was very careful in his actions. He wanted to assassinate Qin Yu before dealing with the Battle Dragon King. He did not expect the Battle Dragon King to detect his presence and even brought Xue Shang along. Even though this was somewhat out of Ji Tianqing's expectations, it also exposed his whereabouts on the spot and prevented him from assassinating other God Kings. But he was not worried or surprised. After all, this was the headquarters of Xuanji Grotto Heaven, and the Battle Dragon King was a 9th-degree God King expert. How could he not have some tricks and abilities? Since his whereabouts were exposed, there was no need to assassinate anymore. He would just fight openly. After making up his mind, Ji Tianqing transmitted his voice to Hu Xinyue and the left and right protectors. He instructed everyone be mentally prepared. When I give the order later, all of you must kill your way out. Hu Xinyue and Ao Jining immediately replied, Young master, we are always prepared. Are you finally going to give the order to attack? Ji Tianqing then remembered that when he first entered Xuanji Grotto Heaven, he had asked everyone to prepare for battle. But later on, he changed his mind and used a day to assassinate many God Kings. This caused the soldiers to be on edge all this time. Thinking that the upcoming battle situation was somewhat special, he warned the soldiers, everyone, don't let your guard down. The situation this time is different. I am in Xuanji Grotto Heaven, at their headquarters. Previously, I used a day to assassinate more than 80 God Kings and created chaos for them. Now that their headquarters is in chaos, it is the best time to attack. I will deal with their commander. You just need to kill the enemy as soon as possible. After all, the enemy still has 130 God Kings and more than 20,000 monarchs. When Ji Tianqing's voice rang out in the divine clock world, the tens of thousands of soldiers were stunned and dumbfounded. In the next moment, countless people regained their senses and erupted into earth-shattering cries and discussions. This is unbelievable. The young master actually sneaked into Xuanji Grotto Heaven. Oh my god! The acting leader is too brave and too quick-witted. The acting leader's courage and wisdom are truly admirable, as expected of the successor appointed by the old leader. Under the leadership of the acting leader, we will definitely dominate the Star Source continent. Sneaking into Xuanji Grotto Heaven alone is like entering a tiger's den, using his own strength to assassinate so many God Kings. This is an unparalleled divine ability. Such an acting leader is simply our unparalleled hero. The acting leader used his own strength to kill almost half of the enemy generals. What are we afraid of? Brothers, let's buck up. Let's use all of our strength and methods to finish the final battle. This time we must still win beautifully. We must not embarrass the acting leader. In the divine clock world, tens of thousands of soldiers were shouting. Everyone's blood was boiling and their morale was soaring. At the same time, the Battle Dragon King in Bloody War stared at Ji Tianqing and summoned many God King powerhouses to hurry over and surround Ji Tianqing. Even though the Battle Dragon King and Bloody War were currently the strongest people in Xuanji Grotto Heaven, but the 2 of them were defeated by Ji Tianqing. Facing Jitianqing, they did not have the confidence to win at all. Following the Battle Dragon King's order, large batches of God King powerhouses flew out from the palaces in all directions very quickly. Among them were the various regions' domain lords, Golden Dragon Guards captains and commanders, as well as Xuanji Grotto Heaven's consecrators. Seeing that Jitianqing was about to be surrounded by dozens of God Kings, the Battle Dragon King's heart finally calmed down a lot. Bloody War, whose expression had been ugly all along, finally recovered to normal. His brows were filled with confidence. Seeing his reaction, Jitianqing naturally knew what he was thinking. He could not help sneering and said, "Bloody War, do you think that you can sit back and relax after hugging Xuanji Grotto Heaven's thighs? Don't forget, you swore a heavenly Tao oath previously. If you dare to make a move against this king, you'll definitely be reduced to ashes." Chapter 3774. The fact that Xueshang had been forced by Jitianqing to swear a heavenly oath had always been his humiliation. And now Jitianqing had mercilessly exposed it in front of the War Dragon King, the 2 Golden Dragon Guard commanders, and many other godly kings. This enraged Xueshang. His eyes blazed with fury as killing intent surged from his body. In particular, the War Dragon King and the Golden Dragon Guard commanders were stunned as they looked at him strangely. This made him even more ashamed and furious. He wanted nothing more than to cut Jitianqing into pieces and grind his bones to dust. The War Dragon King frowned as he stared at Xueshang unhappily. He asked in a low voice, "Xueshang, is this true?" The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was not in the Xuanji Grotto Heaven. A 9th-degree godly king was a top expert and could be of great use. Therefore, the War Dragon King had gladly accepted Xueshang's request to join the Xuanji Grotto Heaven, and entrusted him with an important task. At this critical juncture, he needed an expert like Xueshang who had a king-level supreme-grade divine artifact to resist the myriad demon alliance's attack. But if it was as Jitianqing had said, and Xueshang had sworn a heavenly oath to never attack Jitianqing, then it was a different story. At least, Xueshang's usefulness would be greatly reduced. This disappointed and angered the War Dragon King. Xueshang naturally understood the twists and turns in the story. He hurriedly bowed and apologized to the War Dragon King. He explained softly, "Grand Marshal, please calm down. This matter was also caused by the Taotai tribe's leader, Tao Yongsheng." He gave the Battle Dragon King a simple account of what had happened, downplaying his humiliation and scheming. As for his helplessness in Jitianqing's treachery, he had to emphasize it. While the two of them were whispering, Jitianqing's expression did not change as he observed the godly kings gathered around. But in reality, he secretly released the primordial chaos bell, and controlled it with his mind to fly to the other side of the Golden Dragon Mountain range. Whoosh! The primordial chaos bell turned into a speck of dust and remained invisible. It also concealed its aura so that no one could detect it. Under the control of Jitianqing's mind, the divine bell flew to the other end of the Golden Dragon Mountain range and hid outside a house. That area was 10,000 miles away from here, far away from the Battle Dragon King, Xueshang, and the dozens of God King experts. Moreover, the dozens of palaces and mansions in that area were in a state of chaos without a leader. The thousands of divine emperors gathered there were at a loss, full of suspicion, anxiety, and worry. They were like a tray of loose sand. At this time, Jitianqing secretly controlled the God Clock to open 6 spatial channels. At the same time, he also gave the order to the tens of thousands of soldiers in the divine clock world to attack. Swish! Swish! From the 6 dazzling space swirls, thousands of soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance flooded out. Regardless of whether it was the leading God King powerhouses or the God Lord powerhouses charging bravely, all of them were agitated and excited. They were in a state where their combat strength was off the charts. Kill! Charge! Flatten the Xuanji Grotto and kill all the enemies. The 10,000 Demon Alliance is invincible. The Xuanji Grotto must die. In the blink of an eye, the tens of thousands of soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance all rushed out of the divine clock world. They divided into dozens of teams and charged toward the mansions and palaces nearby. They were excited and their blood was boiling. They shouted inspiring slogans and emitted terrifying killing intent and fighting spirit. The divine emperors in the palaces and mansions were in a state of depression, confusion, and helplessness. Many of them were dumbfounded, seeing the soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance suddenly descending from the sky like heavenly soldiers and generals. Everyone was dumbfounded. They were scared out of their wits and dumbfounded. Immediately after, a shocking and devastating massacre began. Swish, 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 swish. The soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance rushed forward without caring about their own safety. They released their divine power at all costs and cast divine skill lights and shadows. All kinds of secret killing moves and divine skills were thrown into the crowd without any regard for their own lives. In an instant, the highest point of the Golden Dragon Mountain, an area with a radius of 10,000 miles, was covered by the seven-colored divine light. Earth-shattering battle cries and deafening explosions continued to spread out, waking everyone up. Destructive shockwaves of divine light spread out in all directions, bringing with them a rain of blood, broken limbs, and fragments of divine weapons. They fiercely hit everything in their path. The splendid palaces, the quaint mansions, and the beautiful mountains and rivers were all turned into ruins and ashes in a flash. In just a dozen breaths, hundreds of palaces and mansions were destroyed by the aftermath of the battle. More than 3,000 divine emperors were killed or severely injured on the spot, and lost their ability to fight. However, the divine emperors who were shocked and confused finally realized what was going on. Even without the command of the divine kings, they still had captains and commander-level divine emperors who could order them to resist and fight back. Although many of them fought back and joined forces to resist the attacks of the soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance, they were too weak. But very sadly, their strength was too low and could not withstand the fierce attacks of divine king powerhouses at all. In addition, they did not have a formation and did not have a unified command. They fought randomly and fought on their own. They could not fight back at all. Naturally, the divine emperors retreated in defeat and suffered heavy casualties. Many people who were afraid of death and had lost their fighting spirit retreated to the mountain peak. They wanted to seek the protection of the Golden Dragon Guards, the Battle Dragon King, and other experts. The soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance did not advance rashly. Under the leadership of the left and right protectors Hu Xinyue and others, they fought steadily and steadily. They gradually eliminated the enemies in front of them and pushed forward step by step. On the other side of the Golden Dragon Mountain, Xueshang had already finished explaining to the Battle Dragon King. Although he could not attack Ji Tianqing, he was afraid that he would be punished by the heavens. However, he could deal with anyone other than Ji Tianqing, such as the guardians, elders, and heavenly kings of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Moreover, in order to eliminate the Battle Dragon King's worries, he volunteered to kill the guardians and elders of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. Seeing that he was so sensible, the Battle Dragon King felt relieved. It was also at this moment that more than 40 godly king experts rushed over and surrounded Ji Tianqing. At the same time, on the other side of the Golden Dragon Mountain, more than 10,000 Demon Alliance soldiers descended from the sky. Their morale was high as they charged forward. Seeing the sudden appearance of the 10,000 Demon Alliance soldiers, the Battle Dragon King, Xueshang, and dozens of godly kings were shocked. Their faces were filled with shock and fear. The fact that Ji Tianqing could infiltrate the Xuanji Grotto Heaven was already unbelievable. They did not expect that not only did he infiltrate the Xuanji Grotto Heaven and assassinate many godly kings, but he also brought more than 10,000 Demon Alliance soldiers with him. This despicable fellow was truly sinister and despicable to the extreme. Seeing the palaces and residences being destroyed and thousands of divine emperors being slaughtered by the 10,000 Demon Alliance soldiers, the Battle Dragon King and many other godly kings were so angry that their eyes turned red. However, the Battle Dragon King had a strong will and immediately regained his senses. He did not even think about how Ji Tianqing had managed to bring more than 10,000 soldiers into the Xuanji Grotto Heaven. He immediately issued several orders in order to stabilize the situation as soon as possible. Chapter 3775. The War Dragon King had a few orders, but they were clear and went straight to the point. He sent a large number of golden dragon guards to support the Sur gods and lead the scattered Sur gods to resist the attack of the myriad demon league. At this critical moment, no one had the time to comfort the Sur gods who were out of their wits. He could only use the noble status and dignity of the golden dragon guards to command those divine emperors and gather them into a powerful force. Of course, Xueshang, who could not attack Ji Tianqing because of the heavenly oath, was also sent by the War Dragon King to deal with the soldiers of the Myriad Demon League. After all, the soldiers of the Myriad Demon League were led by the left and right protectors, a few elders, and the heavenly kings. They were all experts in the 8th and 9th tier of the Divine King realm. The Golden Dragon Guards alone could not deal with them, so Xueshang had to help. Other than these two orders, the War Dragon King also sent a group of Golden Dragon Guards to gather everyone and form a battle formation to fight the enemy. There were hundreds of palaces and mansions that were not attacked or assassinated. There were also more than 80 divine kings and more than 10,000 Sur gods. They were only awakened by the commotion of the battle and did not know what was going on. The commanders of the Golden Dragon Guards had to hurry over and gather these people to lead them into battle. This was the only way to stabilize the situation and prevent the soldiers of the Xuanji Grotto from collapsing. As for the War Dragon King, he could not personally command the 20,000 soldiers to fight the battle, so he temporarily handed over the power to the Consecrators and the Golden Dragon Guards. He and the 40 God King experts present were going to stay behind to deal with Ji Tianqing. Although the War Dragon King and the 40 Divine Kings formed such a powerful battle formation just to deal with Ji Tianqing, it seemed like he was making a mountain out of a molehill. However, in the War Dragon King's eyes, it was necessary. Although the soldiers of the Myriad Demon League had appeared unexpectedly, they were not afraid of them, even if they appeared out of nowhere and caused great casualties to the Xuanji Grotto. However, the advantage of surprise would soon be lost. As long as the soldiers of the Xuanji Grotto and the Golden Dragon Guard stood firm and fought back in an orderly manner, the soldiers of the Myriad Demon League would soon be defeated. The one that made the War Dragon King feel uneasy and fearful, and that he had to eliminate as soon as possible, was Ji Tianqing. Firstly, it was because this person's strength was formidable, comparable to a peak divine king. His strength and methods were extremely shocking. If they did not kill this person, he would definitely be able to stir up a storm and slaughter thousands of soldiers by himself, destroying the entire Golden Dragon Mountain range. Secondly, this person's methods were ruthless, sinister, and despicable, and it was impossible to guard against. In the past few months, the Enigma Grotto had suffered a great loss in front of this person. They had lost all face. If he did not kill Jiang Chun, there would be changes. Others might not believe it, but the Battle Dragon King was very sure that as long as Ji Tianqing was still alive, he would definitely be able to destroy the Xuanji Grotto and kill everyone there, including him. The Battle Dragon King's hatred, apprehension, and fear of Ji Tianqing had already reached the extreme. In his eyes, Ji Tianqing was even more terrifying than Alliance leader Luo Ho. Haha, War Dragon King, you've gathered so many divine kings just to deal with me. You really think highly of me. Ji Tianqing stood in the sky, holding the burial of heaven. He looked at the War Dragon King with a cold smile. The primordial chaos bell that had turned into dust had returned to his hand. Even though the 40 God Kings in the surroundings were the masters of the various regions and the commanders of the Golden Dragon Guards, they were basically middle-level God Kings with high abilities. However, Ji Tianqing was fearless. He did not think much of those intermediate divine kings. The War Dragon King's face was as cold as ice. His gaze was as sharp as a sword as he stared at Ji Tianqing. He did not mind Ji Tianqing's mockery and said in a low voice, "Your strength and despicableness are worthy of my full strength. Long Tian, it's because I know how powerful you are that I'm so cautious. Because I'll definitely kill you today to rid the world of evil and enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. You sinister and vicious thief, it was your appearance that caused the entire continent to fall into chaos and war, causing countless lives to be plunged into misery and suffering. Hundreds of millions of people were affected." The War Dragon King gritted his teeth and cursed. He did not hide his hatred and resentment for Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing was not angry. He shook his head and smiled coldly. "It's just revenge. Why do you have to use such high-sounding reasons? You're not the heavenly Tao. What right do you have to speak for Tianqing? Also, I can understand your desire to kill me. But you have to face reality. You fell into the void. It's good enough that you managed to survive. You're still heavily injured. With your current condition, even with the help of these divine kings, can you really kill me? Haha, you're too naive. The War Dragon King instinctively wanted to retort. However, he suddenly remembered that Xueshang had mentioned something to him before. He frowned and thought for a moment. Suddenly realization dawned on him. He stared coldly at Ji Tianqing and shouted, "Bastard! You're so confident because of Tao Yongxing's primordial chaos spell? Also, did you bring the people of the Myriad Demon Alliance here with the help of the godly clock?" He immediately found the answer to the questions that he had hidden in his heart. The Battle Dragon King's expression became even more gloomy. His previously confident gaze immediately lost its self-confidence. He was very clear about the power of a supreme-grade king-grade divine artifact. It was also because of this that he accepted and put Xueshang in an important position. Originally, Xueshang had Patriarch Chongqi's indestructible golden body, which was just enough to deal with Long Tian. However, that idiot Xueshang actually swore a heavenly Tao oath. The War Dragon King's expression turned even uglier when he thought of this. His chest burned with rage. He did not have a supreme-grade king-grade divine artifact. He was no match for Long Tian. However, since things had come to this, the War Dragon King would not back down. He would not show any fear or cowardice. The 40 god kings around him were all looking at him. He could not afford to lose their morale. In the blink of an eye, the War Dragon King regained his confidence. He raised his divine spear and shouted, "So what if you have the primordial chaos bell? Since you've entered the mysterious grotto heaven, you'll die here. Kill." The 40 god kings around him had been waiting for a long time. When they heard the order to kill, all of them roared angrily. They waved their divine weapons and unleashed all of their divine power, attacking Ji Tianqing from all sides. In the next moment, divine skill-light shadows that blotted out the sky poured down like a torrential flood, drowning Ji Tianqing. Dozens of formless divine senses also bombarded Ji Tianqing's godhead. Even the space in this area was sealed, making it difficult for Ji Tianqing to move. It was difficult for him to dodge or escape. Of course, the Battle Dragon King didn't stay idle either. He waved his divine spear and unleashed a sky-piercing light that tore through the sky, aiming for Ji Tianqing. He and the 40 god kings attacked together. With such terrifying power, it was almost enough to destroy the mysterious grotto heaven. He was confident that even peak god kings like Luoho and the Golden Dragon Emperor would be scared witless in the face of such a terrifying attack. Chapter 3776. Everyone thought that Ji Tianqing was a peak godly king. Actually, he was not. He was just a 7th stage godly king. However, the combat strength he displayed was comparable to a peak godly king. If they really fought, he might not lose to Luoho and the Golden Dragon Emperor. However, he was not a true peak godly king after all. His cultivation level had not reached the peak yet. Therefore, he could only avoid the full attack of the Battle Dragon King and the 40 godly kings. Of course, he would not hide in a panic, nor would he be injured by them. If it was in the past, he would use the infinite sky of turbidity to fuse with the heaven and earth to neutralize the attacks. However, it was different this time. The Battle Dragon King had just said that he had the primordial chaos bell, and thought that it was his greatest trump card. Since that was the case, Ji Tianqing was not willing to reveal more trump cards. At the same time, he wanted to use this opportunity to test how strong the primordial chaos bell's defense was. After all, he had just finished refining the primordial chaos bell not long ago and had not really tested its power. Swoosh! When the sky full of divine arts descended and drowned Ji Tianqing's figure, he suddenly disappeared. His figure disappeared from the sky, leaving behind only a black dust-like primordial chaos bell. At this moment, the primordial chaos bell was not invisible. It was openly displayed in front of everyone. However, it was too small. The godly kings could only release their divine senses to see its appearance. In the next moment, The overwhelming light of divine spells and all kinds of earth-shattering divine spells bombarded the primordial bell of chaos one after another. Unfortunately, the primordial chaos bell was too small and did not seem to be affected. Most of the divine arts brushed past it and landed on the Golden Dragon Mountain. Bam! 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 Boom! Boom! An earth-shattering sound immediately erupted and reverberated through the universe. The terrifying impact caused the entire Golden Dragon Mountain range to shake violently. The Golden Dragon Mountain was formed by the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's supreme divine arts, and was extremely sturdy. However, the Golden Dragon Mountain was unable to withstand such a terrifying bombardment. Immediately, several cracks appeared on the mountain, revealing several huge abysses. That 10,000-mile-long crack was like an abyss, causing people to feel fear just by looking at it. The terrifying shockwaves of divine power also destroyed half of the palaces and residences in the mountain range. Just like that, the once magnificent palace complex, the sacred and majestic Golden Dragon Divine Palace, was reduced to scorched earth and ruins. As far as the eye could see, the entire mountain range was covered in desolation. Only a few dilapidated palaces and a large pile of dilapidated walls remained. Even if the Xuanji Grotto won the battle and wiped out the myriad Demon League soldiers, they wouldn't be happy about it. It was unknown how many years it would take to recover from such a tragic loss. However, this wasn't what angered the War Dragon King the most. What truly infuriated him and made him almost go berserk on the spot was that the full-powered strike from him and the 40 God Kings actually failed to break through the primordial Chaos Bell's defense. The tiny speck of black dust was still floating in the sky, looking very stable and calm. Naturally, Ji Tianqing, who was hiding in the primordial Chaos Bell, was also unharmed. Damn bastard! That stupid bell actually has such a strong defense? The War Dragon King glared at the primordial Chaos Bell as he roared with bloodshot eyes. The 40 God Kings around him were also filled with shock and disbelief. At this moment, the primordial Chaos Bell suddenly disappeared. Everyone hurriedly released their divine senses and used their ultimate skills to search for its whereabouts. They wanted to see where it had escaped to. However, before they could find its whereabouts, a dazzling divine golden sword appeared behind the God Kings out of thin air. Swish! The divine golden sword, which was hundreds of thousands of feet long, was filled with domineering and violent sword intent. It struck the God Kings with an unstoppable momentum. Even though a few God Kings managed to react in time and cast spells to block or teleport away, the space around them had already been frozen. However, the space within a radius of 5,000 kilometers had been frozen, and they were unable to teleport away. Even if they tried to block it, their speed was too slow. Bam! 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 Crack! Boom! Crack! In the next instant, a series of muffled sounds and explosions rang out. The God Kings were sliced in half or sent flying. Shredded corpses and fresh blood rained down from the sky. The God King's screams were still echoing in the sky, but Ji Tianqing had disappeared again. He turned invisible again and looked for the next opportunity to assassinate. The War Dragon King and the other God Kings' expressions changed. Many of them revealed fearful expressions. The 30-odd God Kings in particular were even more tense as they vigilantly watched their surroundings. Even the War Dragon King's heart was in his mouth as he focused his attention. He was also afraid that Ji Tianqing would attack. After all, he wasn't confident that he could block it. Hence, he focused his divine sense to the maximum and enveloped a radius of 50,000 miles, carefully monitoring for any abnormalities. At the same time, he also used his ultimate skills to search for Ji Tianqing's whereabouts and aura. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing appeared again in just a few short breaths. This time, he still attacked a few mid-level God Kings and didn't attack the War Dragon King. When the dazzling sword light lit up, the God Kings were enveloped by the sword intent and revealed looks of despair. The War Dragon King actually heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he didn't attack me. That was probably the thought that flashed through his mind at that moment. Following a series of muffled bangs, 2 more God Kings were assassinated. Their heads separated from their bodies. Fortunately, only their bodies were destroyed and their god heads were damaged. They didn't die on the spot. The two god kings were scared out of their wits and lost all will to fight. Their godheads hurriedly left their bodies and flew into the distance. Ji Tianqing prioritized the situation and didn't chase after them. He concealed himself again and looked for an opportunity to assassinate. The situation was still very tense. Only he, the War Dragon King, and 30-odd god kings remained at the peak of the Golden Dragon Mountain. The 10,000 soldiers of the Myriad Demon Alliance and the 10,000 soldiers of the Mystical Grotto had long since left this area. More than 20,000 godlords and 100 god kings were divided into more than a dozen groups. They were either fighting or fleeing around the Golden Dragon Mountain. Looking at the overall situation, the Mystical Grotto had the advantage in numbers. They were basically attacking the Myriad Demon Alliance's soldiers with numbers. On the battlefield at the end of the Golden Dragon Mountain, Xueshang was in the limelight. He relied on Patriarch Chongqi's indestructible golden body to stand in an undefeatable position. He beat the left and right protectors and the two elders to a pulp. The situation on the other battlefields was similar. The 10,000 godlords who had no leader were under the command of the Golden Dragon Guards. They had already stabilized their positions and were fighting back in an orderly manner. Although both sides had suffered casualties in the battle, the Myriad Demon Alliance's casualties were obviously more serious. Ji Tianqing only took a moment to look at the situation and realized that the situation was not good. If he couldn't end the battle between the War Dragon King and these God Kings soon, the Myriad Demon Alliance would still lose as time dragged on. Chapter 3777. War was never a simple matter. Moreover, this war concerned the position of the overlord of the Star Source continent. Abstruse Grotto Heaven had controlled the entire continent for more than 20,000 years. Its foundation was unimaginably strong. No matter how confident Ji Tianqing was and how he had planned everything in advance, things were still progressing smoothly. But in the end, the Myriad Demon Alliance was still not assured of victory. In fact, they were slowly losing. Only now did Ji Tianqing realize that he had underestimated Abstruse Grotto Heaven. Things were not as simple as they seemed. If nothing went wrong, even if the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was not around, the Battle Dragon King and the others could still defend Abstruse Grotto Heaven. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing became anxious and increased the pace of his attacks. Swoosh! Swoosh! He stopped hiding and looking for an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. Instead, he revealed himself and brandished the Sword of Burial of Heaven. He used all sorts of sword Dao mystiques and killer moves to kill the God Kings. In an instant, the sky above the Golden Dragon Mountain was filled with dazzling sword light. The Battle Dragon King and the other God Kings heaved a sigh of relief when they saw Ji Tianqing no longer hiding. No matter how strong he was, as long as he fought openly, they would not be so afraid. However, after a few moments of fighting, the Battle Dragon King and the other God Kings' hearts tightened again. Ji Tianqing was indeed strong. His methods were ruthless and decisive. After exchanging just over 100 blows, 6 God Kings were killed on the spot. 9 God Kings were severely injured and lost their ability to fight. As for those God Kings whose bodies were destroyed, their godheads flew out of their bodies and fled in panic. But Ji Tianqing did not chase after them. He allowed them to escape and continued to kill the other God Kings. He did this so that he could destroy the combat strength of these God Kings in the shortest time possible and secure victory for the Myriad Demon Alliance. The Battle Dragon King and the other God Kings saw through his intentions. Therefore, they surrounded Ji Tianqing without any regard for their own safety. They did not expect to kill him on the spot, but they wanted to at least delay him. The War Dragon King told everyone that as long as they could delay Ji Tianqing for an hour, the mysterious Paradise's crisis would be resolved. The surviving God Kings did not think too much about it and believed his words. In their opinion, as long as they could stall Ji Tianqing for an hour, the army of the Myriad Demon Alliance would be slaughtered to the last. By then there would only be Ji Tianqing left. No matter how strong he was, he would still be blasted into pieces under the siege of over 10,000 Sir Gods and over 100 Divine Kings. However, no one knew that the Battle Dragon King's words actually had another meaning. Swish! The Battle Dragon King and over 20 God Kings surrounded Ji Tianqing without any regard for their own safety. Just as he was about to be besieged by the crowd and fall into a dangerous situation, his figure disappeared into thin air. In the next instant, he appeared outside the encirclement like a ghost and attacked one of the God Kings as fast as lightning. Boom! As a few sword lights flashed, that God King let out a tragic cry. His head was chopped off on the spot, and his god head shattered into pieces. It was only then that the Battle Dragon King and the other God Kings reacted and rushed over. Everyone's expression was ugly, and their eyes were filled with shock, especially the Battle Dragon King, who found it even more unbelievable. He had already joined forces with the others and released nomological powers without any regard for the cost, sealing and confining this area. Logically speaking, Ji Tianqing should have had difficulty moving. He should not have been able to travel through space, much less teleport to evade. However, Ji Tianqing had done it. Moreover, it was smooth as if he was not affected at all. It was also because of this that the Battle Dragon King and the other God Kings' encirclement failed repeatedly. They were unable to delay Ji Tianqing. As time passed, the number of God Kings around the Battle Dragon King rapidly decreased. After 15 minutes, there were only 18 God Kings around him. Moreover, he had been attacked by Ji Tianqing several times. Although he had not been killed, nor had his divine body been destroyed, he had been severely injured, and his combat strength had greatly decreased. What made the Battle Dragon King even more anxious was that as the number of God Kings around him decreased, Ji Tianqing became more and more ferocious. There was no way to restrain or block him. Not to mention the 18 God Kings, even the Battle Dragon King himself was constantly in danger. He could be killed by Ji Tianqing at any time. The Battle Dragon King's heart was burning with anxiety. As he fought bravely, he used all his strength to contend with Ji Tianqing. At the same time, he prayed silently in his heart. I have already restrained Ji Tianqing for so long. You have twice the number of people compared to the Myriad Demon Alliance. Don't disappoint me. And you said you would arrive at the mystical grotto today. Why haven't you appeared yet? If you dare to take advantage of your seniority and ruin my plans, the Dragon Emperor will definitely not forgive you. In the Battle Dragon King's prayer, the first you referred to the 10,000 soldiers of the mystical grotto. As for the second you, only he knew that they were two super experts. An expert who was even more tyrannical than him. In the sky above a ruin 80,000 miles away from the Golden Dragon Mountain. The left and right protectors Hu Xinyue and Bai Feng were still attacking Xueshang together. Below them, more than 4,000 monarch god experts were still fighting fiercely. All of them were bathed in blood. Xueshang had the protection of the indestructible golden body. Up until now, he was still unharmed. It was just that he had used up a lot of his divine power. As for the left and right protectors Hu Xinyue and the rest, they were already severely injured. All of them were covered in blood and looked miserable. Their auras were also very weak. After fighting for so long, they knew that Xueshang had a king-grade god artifact to protect him. He was undefeatable. However, they still had to fight to delay Xueshang and prevent him from causing a greater massacre and disaster. One should know that a ninth heaven realm god king with a king-grade god artifact would be invincible once he entered the battlefield. He could kill dozens or even hundreds of monarch god experts with a wave of his hand. He could kill more than 1,000 monarch god experts within an hour. Although he was not as powerful as Ji Tianqing, Alliance Master Luo Ho, or Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, he was still a super killer on the battlefield. However, the left and right protectors Hu Xinyue and the rest were already severely injured. After fighting with Xueshang for so long, they could not hold on any longer. Everyone looked at the other end of the Golden Dragon Mountain range, where Ji Tianqing and the Battle Dragon King were, as if they were looking forward to seeing them. A few of them were also praying silently in their hearts. Young Master, oh young Master, quickly settle the battle over there and come help everyone. If you don't come, all the men in our alliance will be killed. Young Lord, although you have a perfect plan and are good at commanding troops, there are too few of us. We are no match for Xuanji Grotto Heaven. My lord, even if you don't save us, the two mistresses are still fighting a bloody battle. You should quickly settle the strong enemy over there, and help the two mistresses out. There was no doubt that the last sentence was Bai Feng's prayer. After the tens of thousands of soldiers from the Myriad Demon Alliance left the Divine Clock World, Yun Yao, Jiku, Bai Feng, and Chao Qingyu also left the Nine Heavens 10 Absolutes Tower and joined the battle. Chapter 3778. At the same time, at the end of the Golden Dragon Mountain, 100,000 miles away from Jitianqing, Yun Yao, Jiku, Chao Qingyu, and Yank were leading more than 2,000 Sir God experts in a fierce battle against 4,000 people from Xuanji Grotto. Although the 4,000 Sir Gods came from different forces, their leaders had been assassinated by Jitianqing. However, not long after the battle began, 6 Golden Dragon Guard commanders led 300 Golden Dragon Guards to take over the Sir Gods. The 6 Golden Dragon Guard commanders were very powerful. They were the best among the middle-level godly kings. The 300 Golden Dragon Guards were also top-notch Sir God experts. Among them, there were a dozen Golden Dragon Guard captains who were low-level godly kings. Comparing the two sides, Xuanji Grotto had more people and more powerful experts. No matter how much Yun Yao, Jiku, and the others fought bravely, it was impossible for them to turn the tide. So far, the battle had lasted for 30 minutes. More than 800 Sir Gods from the 10,000 Demon League had died. Yun Yao, Jiku, Chao Qingyu, and Yank were also severely injured. Their robes were stained with blood and they looked battered and exhausted. As for the 6 Golden Dragon Guard commanders and the dozen Golden Dragon Guard captains, they were obviously in a much better state. Although they were also injured, they still had the advantage in numbers. However, they still had the advantage in numbers and their injuries were lighter. If the battle continued to drag on, Yun Yao, Jiku, and the others would definitely be defeated. Therefore, Yun Yao, Jiku, and the others were also paying attention to the other end of the Golden Dragon Mountain. They were worried about Jitianqing's safety and prayed silently in their hearts. Jitianqing was also very anxious. In order to get rid of the godly kings in front of him as soon as possible, he even changed his usual style. If it were in the past, he would definitely kill those godly kings completely. He would even smash their godheads into pieces. He would never let them escape. But now, he only wanted to end the battle quickly so that he could rush to the 10,000 Demon League soldiers and his friends. Just now, in this short period of time, he had killed another 6 God Kings. Now, only the War Dragon King and the 12 God Kings were left. Sword of Destruction. In his anxiety, Jitianqing found an opportunity to absorb the power of the 5 Elements world and use this ultimate skill. The 10,000-meter-long golden sword of light slashed toward the Battle Dragon King and the 3 God Kings with devastating power. At that moment, the sky was sliced apart by the sword light, and a huge crack appeared in the void. Unparalleled divine might and heaven-reaching sword intent enveloped the Battle Dragon King and the 3 God Kings, making them unable to move. Their faces were filled with fear and despair. Not far away, the 9 God Kings were also heavily injured. Seeing that shocking sword slash down, they were scared out of their wits and fled in panic, even though they knew that the sword was not aimed at them. However, the might of that sword light was too shocking. They didn't dare get too close for fear of being caught in the crossfire, so they naturally had to flee as far as possible. At this critical moment, the War Dragon King roared angrily. He was actually able to maintain his calm and join forces with the 3 God Kings to create a temporary formation to block the attack. Kaboom! In the next instant, the heaven-splitting divine sword of light slashed into the battle formation created by the 4 God Kings, striking the huge 5-colored barrier of light. Following a deafening explosion, the 5-colored light barrier instantly collapsed, and fragments of divine light burst out in all directions. The violent shockwave formed a 5-colored torrent that swept into the distance. However, the divine sword of light did not weaken as it struck the War Dragon King and the 3 God Kings. The protective divine light and armor of the 3 God Kings shattered on the spot. Their bodies also exploded into bits and pieces, spraying into the sky along with their blood. The 3 God Kings were killed on the spot, and even their godheads shattered. Even the strongest of them, the War Dragon King, was sent flying thousands of miles away with blood spurting out of his orifices. His protective divine light had already shattered, and so had his armor. Even the divine spear in his hand cracked, and its light became extremely dim. Boom! With a loud explosion, the War Dragon King crashed into the ruined Golden Dragon Mountain range, creating a huge crater in the ground and sending dust into the air. He lay at the bottom of the crater, covered in blood and dust. His appearance was too horrible to look at. Cough cough. His injuries were too severe, and several cracks had appeared on his divine body. He could not help but cough and spit out dirty blood. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ji Tianqing flashed and appeared above the crater. War Dragon King die. Ji Tianqing roared as he slashed down with the Sword of Burial of Heaven. As long as he killed the War Dragon King, the Xuanji Grotto Heaven would lose its commander, and chaos would ensue. However, what Ji Tianqing did not expect was that the 9 God Kings, who were scared out of their wits, would charge over without any regard for their own safety and join forces to stop him. Don't you dare harm the Grand Marshal. Long Tian, you bastard, I'll kill you. Long Tian, let's die together. The 9 God Kings attacked Ji Tianqing in a frenzy, shouting and roaring at the top of their lungs. There were even people who stood in front of him and resolutely self-destructed. Ji Tianqing was confused. Weren't these God Kings scared out of their wits? Why did they suddenly become so brave? He focused his eyes and realized that the 9 God Kings were all commanders of the Golden Dragon Guard. It was obvious that the War Dragon King held an extremely high position in their hearts, and they revered him greatly. In order to protect the War Dragon King, they would rather die in battle. Swoosh! Swoosh swoosh! Ji Tianqing swung the Sword of Burial of Heaven, and killed 3 God Kings in an instant. However, the other 6 God Kings were not intimidated by him. They continued to charge over as if they had gone mad. There was even someone who shouted at the War Dragon King, "Grand Marshal, run!" The War Dragon King forced his heavily injured body to stand up at the bottom of the crater. Seeing the Golden Dragon Guard commanders risking their lives to save him, he was filled with hot blood. His eyes were red, and he was extremely angry. However, he was not an impulsive person. He knew that everyone had sacrificed their lives to save him. If he acted rashly, everyone would have died in vain. Thus, he roared angrily, "Brothers, I swear that I will avenge all of you." After shouting, he decisively turned around and fled, flying into the depths of the mysterious Grotto Heaven. Ji Tianqing subconsciously wanted to chase after them, but the 4 God Kings didn't fear death and kept pestering him. 2 of the God Kings had already self-detonated. Boom! Boom! Following 2 loud explosions that shook the 9 heavens, 2 dazzling balls of 5-colored divine light exploded in the sky. Like 2 huge mushroom clouds, they rose and rolled in the sky and quickly spread out, covering a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles. The self-destruction of 2 mid-level God Kings was enough to destroy the entire Golden Dragon Mountain range. In that instant, Ji Tianqing did not have time to dodge, so he could only escape into the primordial chaos bell. The 4 God Kings closest to him were all covered in blood, and they looked wretched and hideous. However, when they saw the War Dragon King escape, they all looked as if they had been relieved of a heavy burden. Immediately after, they were engulfed by the dazzling divine light. Like snow under the scorching sun, they quickly melted and disintegrated. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 3779. The shockwave from the 2 godly kings' self-destruction swept across the entire Golden Dragon Mountain like a colorful flood. After the shockwave reached a radius of 100,000 miles, it spread out for another 100,000 miles before gradually dissipating. Fortunately, this was the Xuanji Grotto Heaven where the space was stable. The Golden Dragon Mountain was personally refined by the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, so it was extremely sturdy. Therefore, the power of the 2 godly kings' self-destruction was halved. If this was any other region in the Dragon Realm, the power of the 2 godly kings' self-destruction would be enough to turn everything within a radius of 300,000 miles into ruins. However, the self-destruction this time only turned the majestic Golden Dragon Mountain into dilapidated mountains and ravines. When the shockwave reached a radius of 100,000 miles, its power was halved, although it also destroyed many mountains and forests. However, the godly kings and godly lords who were engaged in the battle did not suffer much damage. Only about 2,000 unlucky godly lords who were close to the explosion were blasted into smithereens by the shockwave. There were also about 1,000 godly lords who were severely injured by the shockwave. They were unconscious or had lost their ability to fight. About 4,000 people were unlucky. Half of them were from the 10,000 Demon Alliance and the other half were from the Xuanji Grotto Heaven. As for the godly kings, they all had life-saving methods and trump cards, so they were basically fine. However, this self-detonation caught everyone off guard and gave them a fright. Whether it was Xueshang, the commander of the Golden Dragon Guards, the left and right protectors, Hu Xinyue, Yunyao, Jiku, or the others, their hearts were in their throats as they were extremely worried. Everyone was very anxious as they secretly wondered who had been forced to self-destruct. How was the battle between Ji Tianqing and the Battle Dragon King? Why was someone forced to self-destruct? Therefore, the battle between the two sides stopped for a moment. Without a doubt, the people who had besieged and harassed Ji Tianqing had all been dealt with. The Battle Dragon King was severely injured and had escaped. Half of the 40 godly kings who besieged Ji Tianqing had their divine bodies destroyed. Only their godheads were left and had escaped. No one knew where they were hiding. The other half were killed on the spot and had their bones crushed. Of course, their quintessence fragments and spatial rings had all fallen into Ji Tianqing's hands. A moment later, when the overwhelming divine light shock wave dissipated and the loud noise that reverberated between heaven and earth disappeared, the primordial bell of primordial chaos reappeared. Shua! This simple and unadorned pitch-black divine bell was located at the center of the God King's self-detonation. It had withstood the most terrifying power. Although its defense was strong and invincible, it was not injured. Ji Tianqing, who hid in the God Clock in time, did not suffer any harm. However, it was still sent flying tens of thousands of miles away by the violent impact, smashing into the ruins at the edge of the Golden Dragon Mountain range. 100-mile-wide crater was created on the ground, and the surrounding area was densely covered in cracks, looking like a spider web. Ji Tianqing controlled the primordial chaos bell and rushed toward the end of the Golden Dragon Mountain range. The Battle Dragon King had already escaped. For the time being, he didn't have any thoughts of eliminating the Battle Dragon King. He just wanted to hurry over and help everyone. The primordial bell of primordial chaos turned into invisible dust and flew quickly in the sky, approaching the battlefield at an extremely fast speed. Ji Tianqing released his divine consciousness and scanned the surrounding tens of thousands of miles. He quickly saw that the 10,000 godlords from the Myriad Demon Alliance and the mystical Grotto Heaven were fighting in several different battlefields. Due to the impact of the two God Kings' self-detonation, the few battlefields had temporarily calmed down. Both sides had stopped fighting. However, it was obvious that the Myriad Demon Alliance had fewer people, and the mystical Grotto Heaven had the upper hand. Fortunately, the difference in the number of God Kings on both sides was not that great. The mystical Grotto Heaven originally had more than 210 God King experts. Before the battle began, Ji Tianqing had already assassinated more than 80 of them. The 40 God Kings that had besieged him earlier were all killed by him. At that moment, the mystical Grotto Heaven only had about 80 God Kings left. As for the Myriad Demon Alliance, including Yunyao, Jiku, and Chao Qingyu, there were only 72 God Kings. Although they did not have the advantage in numbers, it did not affect them too much. Ji Tianqing believed that victory would belong to the Myriad Demon Alliance in the end. The shockwaves from the two God Kings' self-detonation had temporarily calmed the battlefield for 100 breaths. However, after both sides came to their senses and recovered, they continued to fight. It was as cruel as ever. The left and right protectors Hu Xinyue Baifeng and the others became more and more worried and anxious. There were a few times when they could not help but go to the area of the explosion to see what was going on. Their injuries had worsened, and they were practically covered in blood. They had also used up more than half of their divine power and were gradually weakening. Could it be that the young master did not defeat the War Dragon King and those God Kings and has met with misfortune? This thought flashed through the minds of the left and right protectors and Hu Xinyue. The three of them began to feel pessimistic, and their expressions became more and more serious. Fortunately, at that moment, Ji Tianqing's voice suddenly rang out in their minds. The War Dragon King has escaped with heavy injuries. I am safe and sound. Hold on for a while longer. Once I have dealt with the other battlefields, I will come and help you. Everyone was in a state of despair. When they heard Ji Tianqing's words, it was as if they had heard a heavenly voice. Their despair and pessimism were swept away. The pain and exhaustion that covered their bodies also disappeared in an instant. Everyone's spirits were lifted, and they became energetic again. Their fighting spirit was high. Although they looked around, they did not see Ji Tianqing's figure. However, they guessed that Ji Tianqing must have a motive for hiding and not appearing. Therefore, the left and right protectors Hu Xinyue and Bai Feng were no longer anxious and worried. The four of them cast their spells in an orderly manner and joined forces to restrain Xue Shang. On the other side, Ji Tianqing steered the primordial chaos bell and quietly flew to the battlefield where Yunyao, Ji Ku, and the others were. At that moment, Yunyao, Ji Ku, Chao Qingyu, and the others were severely injured, and their divine power was also very weak. The 6 Golden Dragon Guard commanders who were besieging them were still very strong, and their injuries were relatively light. They watched as the 6 Golden Dragon Guard commanders closed in on them. They caught a flaw in Chao Qingyu's defense, and 2 of them immediately used their ultimate skills to kill him. Instantly, Chao Qingyu was drowned in divine light, and hundreds of laws and divine powers were about to strangle him to death. At this critical moment, Ji Tianqing brazenly attacked. He waved the Burial of Heaven sword and slashed out sword shadows that filled the sky. Bam! 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 With a series of muffled sounds, the divine powers of the 2 Golden Dragon Guard commanders were defeated, and Chao Qingyu was safe. Seeing Ji Tianqing suddenly appear, Chao Qingyu, Yang Yunyao, and Ji Ku were all stunned for a moment. Then they were filled with joy. As for the 6 Golden Dragon Guard commanders, when they saw his appearance, they were instantly shocked and filled with fear. They knew that the Battle Dragon King and the 40 God Kings had been besieging Ji Tianqing. Now that Ji Tianqing had appeared safe and sound, didn't that mean that, without waiting for the 6 Golden Dragon Guard commanders to think carefully, Ji Tianqing had already attacked at lightning speed? He waved his sword and a cold gleam appeared. Sword of Daytime. That extremely bright cold gleam instantly expanded by hundreds of millions of times. It turned into a blazing golden sun that covered the sky and swallowed the 6 Golden Dragon Guard commanders. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 3780. The 6 Golden Dragon Guards reacted differently under the dazzling sword light. Some of them turned around and ran away in fear. Some of them roared in despair. Some of them knew that they couldn't escape, so they tried their best to resist. Kaboom! However, everything they did was in vain. With an earth-shattering explosion, the dazzling sun exploded. Billions of pieces of golden light wrapped around the flesh and blood of the commanders. Countless blood flowers bloomed in the sky. The 6 Golden Dragon Guards were all middle-level divine kings. How could they resist Ji Tianqing's sword principle unique skill? In an instant, 5 Golden Dragon Guards were smashed into pieces. Even their godheads were shattered. Only one of them was lucky. His godhead escaped, but his godhead was still intact. Under Ji Tianqing's purposeful control, the explosion of the daylight sword was limited to a radius of 10 miles. Otherwise, the shockwave and sword essence from the explosion of the sword light would spread across a few thousand miles and affect many people. Not only would the people from the Xuanji Cave Heaven be affected, but the divine emperors from the 10,000 Demon Alliance would also be killed by the sword light. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing's control of power and laws had reached an extremely precise and subtle level. The daylight sword was able to kill or severely injure the 6 Golden Dragon Guards, but it wouldn't hurt the others. After the 6 Golden Dragon Guards were killed, Ji Ku, Yunyao, Chao Qingyu and the others felt a lot less pressured. Ji Tianqing went after the Golden Dragon Guard commander who ran away. In a flash, he caught up with the Godhead and destroyed it in 2 moves. The Godhead fragments and interspatial rings fell from the sky and were taken by him. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yunyao, Ji Ku and the others quickly took divine elixirs to suppress their injuries. Not far away, A dozen Golden Dragon Guards captains and 2,000 divine emperors from the Xuanji Cave Heaven were dumbfounded. They were scared out of their wits. They originally had the upper hand. As long as they fought steadily, they would definitely win. However, the 6 Golden Dragon Guards captains were killed. The situation took a turn for the worse. Everyone began to panic. Their momentum immediately weakened. Even the power of their attacks was greatly reduced. Instead, it was the 1,000-odd divine lords from the Myriad Demon League that were previously at a disadvantage. They were suppressed and forced to retreat. Seeing the acting chief appear out of nowhere and kill several Golden Dragon Guard commanders in seconds, everyone's morale was greatly boosted and their blood was boiling. Their spirit and faith supported them, allowing them to erupt with even more ferocious fighting spirit and launch an intense counterattack. After a while, Yun Yao, Jiku, Chao Qingyu and Yang also suppressed their injuries and recuperated their divine powers and auras. They charged into the battlefield once again and attacked the dozen captains of the Golden Dragon Guards. With their middle-level Divine King strength, dealing with those low-level Divine Kings could be said to be more than enough. After only a dozen moves, 2 Golden Dragon Guards were killed and 3 were severely injured. This caused the morale of both sides to rise and fall, and the situation was quickly reversed. As long as there were no accidents, Yun Yao, Jiku, and the others would definitely win. At the same time, Ji Tianqing had already moved to another battlefield. Although his strength was close to that of a peak Divine King, if he joined the battle, he would definitely be able to kill a group of Divine Lords quickly. However, he didn't do so. It would take too much time and wouldn't change the situation much. As the commander of the Myriad Demon League, of course, he couldn't keep an eye on the Divine Lords of the Xuanji Grotto. His target was naturally the commanders and Divine Kings of the Xuanji Grotto. This was because he knew very well that the true winner of a war was always the strong. Only by killing the commanders and experts of the Xuanji Grotto could he secure victory. Swish! Ji Tianqing silently arrived at a battlefield and teleported behind a middle-level Divine King. This middle-level Divine King was a territorial lord under the command of the Xuanji Grotto. On the battlefield, there were 12 Divine Kings from the Xuanji Grotto leading more than 3,000 Divine Lords. Their opponents were the 3rd Elder, 4th Elder, and 5th Elder of the Myriad Demon League. There were a total of 10 Divine Kings and more than 1,000 Divine Lords. Before Ji Tianqing appeared, the Elders of the Myriad Demon League were severely injured. One of them even had his divine body destroyed, leaving him with only a godhead. However, his godhead had nowhere to go, so it attached itself to the 3rd Elder's body. The 1,000 Divine Lords of the Myriad Demon League were also severely injured. Their numbers were rapidly decreasing. However, after Ji Tianqing appeared, he instantly killed a territorial lord with a thunderous strike. The other Divine Kings from the Xuanji Grotto were all stunned by Ji Tianqing. They were stunned for a moment before they were filled with shock. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ji Tianqing performed a few more sword Dao techniques consecutively and killed a few more Divine Kings. Immediately, the experts of the Xuanji Grotto were terrified. Their morale hit rock bottom. Meanwhile, the soldiers of the Myriad Demon League were greatly encouraged. Their morale soared. The situation immediately reversed. The Xuanji Grotto side was forced to retreat, and the Myriad Demon League would definitely win. Thus, Ji Tianqing quietly left and rushed to the next battlefield. The next few battlefields all had similar situations. The soldiers of the Myriad Demon League were originally at a disadvantage. They had suffered heavy casualties and were in a very dangerous situation. However, after Ji Tianqing arrived and quickly killed a group of Divine Kings, the situation was reversed. The Xuanji Grotto side was anxious and their morale was low. On the other hand, the morale of the Myriad Demon League side was high. The soldiers' fighting spirit was high. Under this situation, the scales of victory continued to tilt towards the Myriad Demon League. About 15 minutes later, Ji Tianqing helped the 6 battlefields resolve the crisis. After turning the situation around, he went to help the left and right protectors Hu Xinyue and the others. At this time, everyone's injuries were even worse than before. Even though the 3 of them surrounded Xueshang, they were unable to hurt him. Instead, they were beaten to a miserable state by Xueshang. Their divine bodies were almost destroyed. They were extremely weak and had almost no strength to continue fighting. If not for the fact that Ji Tianqing was safe and sound and had defeated the Battle Dragon King, they would have lost their mental support. It was because they knew that Ji Tianqing was currently helping the other members of the League, and would soon come to their aid that they could hold on until now. Otherwise, they would have given up resisting. Now that Ji Tianqing had finally made a move, they could finally see the light of day. They finally saw hope for victory. As for Xueshang, although he was in an invincible position and had not suffered any substantial injuries after fighting for so long, however, he had used up a lot of his divine power and was mentally exhausted. The left and right protectors in who Xinyu he faced were both peak 8th and 9th stage divine kings. They were not much weaker than him. If not for old ancestor Qiong Qi's indestructible golden body, he would not be a match for the three of them. On one hand, he was exhausted. At the same time, he was mentally and physically exhausted. Deep in his heart, he was anxious and worried. He already knew that Ji Tianqing was safe and sound, and that the Battle Dragon King had escaped with serious injuries, including Qin Yu being assassinated by Ji Tianqing. That was also something he saw on the spot. Of the two commanders of the Xuanji Grotto, one was dead and the other was injured. Other than him, no one could go against Ji Tianqing. However, due to the heavenly oath, he could not deal with Ji Tianqing. How could he not be anxious? Chapter 3781. Ji Tianqing appeared at the end of the Golden Dragon Mountain range and killed 2 godly kings with lightning speed. This immediately attracted the attention of a dozen godly kings. Even Xueshang looked over cautiously. The battle between Xueshang and the left and right protectors Hu Xinyue and the others stopped for a moment. Ji Tianqing no longer concealed himself. He appeared in the open and flew toward Xueshang and the others. He glanced at the left and right protectors Hu Xinyue and the others. Seeing that they were covered in wounds and looked like they were made of blood, his heart skipped a beat. You guys retreat first. Leave this to me. Ji Tianqing flew across the sky with sword in hand. Under everyone's gaze, he flew toward Xueshang. The left and right protectors Hu Xinyue and the others hurriedly acknowledged the order. They retreated far away and consumed elixirs to suppress their injuries. When Ji Tianqing was 10,000 feet away from Xueshang, he stopped in the sky. The scene immediately quieted down. Whether it was the Myriad Demon Alliance or the Xuanji Grotto, they all looked at Ji Tianqing and Xueshang. It was common knowledge that the two of them were the strongest cultivators in the Xuanji Wonderland. In other words, the outcome of the battle was in their hands. The atmosphere was heavy. The experts of the Xuanji Grotto had gloomy expressions. Even Xueshang's eyes were evasive. He did not dare to meet Ji Tianqing's eyes. His aura was weaker than before. Xueshang, Qin Yu is dead. The Battle Dragon King has escaped with heavy injuries. The Xuanji Grotto is leaderless. What are you still struggling for? Ji Tianqing looked at Xueshang with a stern expression and questioned him calmly. Xueshang frowned. Anxiety and helplessness flashed across his eyes. Indeed, the Xuanji Grotto was doomed. Unless the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor appeared, there was no way they could turn the tables. However, he knew that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor would not return anytime soon. Therefore, the Xuanji Grotto's defeat was inevitable. Ji Tianqing was right. No matter how he struggled, it was futile. Moreover, he was only temporarily relying on the Xuanji Grotto. He was not their subordinate. Since they were seeking refuge, they could give up and betray them at the crucial moment. If not for the fact that he was worried that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor would come after him, he would have fled long ago. Of course, if he were to escape, he would definitely do it quietly and would not make a fuss about it. Now that Ji Tianqing was being so overbearing in front of so many people, he couldn't possibly lower his head and admit defeat, much less run away. If he dared to abandon over 10,000 soldiers and escape alone, he would become the laughingstock of the entire Stellar Origin continent, the target of everyone's disdain and contempt. For the next tens of thousands of years, he would be nailed to the pillar of shame, unable to turn the tables. Therefore, he could only brace himself and say righteously, as the saying goes, a fine bird chooses a tree to nest in. Long Tian, you should understand this principle. I've always believed that the geniuses of the Enigma Grotto are the masters of this continent, and the Myriad Demon Alliance is not qualified. Since I've chosen to assist the Enigma Grotto Heaven, I'll stick to it until the end. I won't change my mind easily. When his voice spread across tens of thousands of li, the thousands of soldiers of the mysterious paradise all cheered and looked at him with admiration. Just now, these people were still worried that Xueshang would run away. With Xueshang's strength and methods, he had a chance to escape, but the thousands of soldiers were destined to die here. Now that they heard his impassioned declaration, the officers and soldiers felt reassured. Naturally, their morale was greatly boosted, and their fighting spirit was rekindled. Ji Tianqing furrowed his brows and sneered. You've always been treacherous and two-faced. You're just putting on an act when you say those words. Don't forget your heavenly oath. With me here, you won't have a chance to make a move. Xueshang frowned and his face turned ugly. He was silent and seemed to be deep in thought. No one knew what he was thinking. Perhaps he was hesitating and weighing whether to give up or not. But at this moment, a deep and dignified male voice came from the distant ruins. Longtian, you wishful-thinking thief, you're too naive. Do you think that the position of the overlord of the Enigma Grotto Heaven is something you can easily shake? The angry roar was like rolling thunder, reverberating between heaven and earth. It instantly woke up more than 10,000 people on the battlefield. Many people were familiar with this voice. They all looked to the north with surprise, disbelief, worry, and fear. Then everyone saw a tall and sturdy figure, wrapped in a dazzling golden light, quickly fly into the sky above the battlefield. The figure shrouded in golden light was none other than the armored war dragon king. He had already changed into a new set of armor and helmet. The divine spear in his hand was also something no one had seen before. His face was very pale, and there were 2 hideous wounds on his cheeks. But other than that, no one could see the injuries on his body, nor did they know how serious his injuries were. Everyone only felt that the Battle Dragon King was wrapped in a sacred golden light, and he looked extremely valiant and intimidating. Only experts like Ji Tianqing, the left and right protectors, and Xueshang could sense that the Battle Dragon King was indeed severely injured and very weak. He had purposely changed his armor and covered his body with golden light. It was just a bluff to hide his weakness. But this move was very effective against the soldiers of the Enigma Grotto Heaven. Seeing the heavily injured Battle Dragon King return to the battlefield majestically, the nearly 10,000 soldiers of the Enigma Grotto Heaven cheered in joy. It was just a heavily injured Battle Dragon King. Ji Tianqing naturally did not take it to heart. However, when his gaze landed behind the Battle Dragon King and saw 2 unfamiliar Godly King experts, he suddenly became vigilant. The left and right protectors Hu Xinyue and the experts of the Myriad Demon Alliance also stared at the 2 figures cautiously. The 2 mysterious experts of unknown origins had very distinct appearances. On the left was a skinny, golden-haired elder more than 10 feet tall. He wore a golden robe embroidered with silver starry patterns. His entire body was filled with a sacred and peaceful aura. Judging from this elder's appearance, his cheeks were long, and his chin and nose were very sharp. He seemed to have been transformed from a divine bird. As for the Godly King expert on the right, he was nearly 3 feet tall and his body was as sturdy as a small mountain. He had a flat face, a flat nose, a wide mouth, and rows of uneven fangs. From his appearance and the aura he emitted, Ji Tianqing could vaguely guess that he was from the sea race. Most importantly, these 2 Godly King experts of unknown origins were surrounded by formless divine law patterns. Their strength was unfathomable. Obviously, these 2 were peak 9th stage Godly Kings. They might even be peak Godly Kings. Realizing this, Ji Tianqing hurriedly sent a message to the left and right protectors. On the Star Source continent, other than the Old Alliance Master and the Golden Dragon Emperor, who else is a peak Godly King? The left and right protectors were stunned. They frowned and thought carefully for a moment. Suddenly they thought of something and their expressions changed. Chapter 3782. Young Master. There are indeed two more peak divine kings on the Star Source continent. One is the old divine king who was born in the ancient times and made his name 20,000 years ago, Patriarch Golden Rock. The other is a rising star in the recent 1,000 years, Divine King War Whale. The left and right protectors guessed the answer and hurriedly reported it to Ji Tianqing. Their tones were complicated, low and filled with worry. After a moment of silence, the two seemed to be afraid that Ji Tianqing did not understand the situation, so they took the initiative to explain. The Golden Rock tribe has always been in the 9 mystical grotto heaven, far away from the secular world. Patriarch Golden Rock has not shown himself for 10,000 years, and has always been in seclusion to cultivate. As for Divine King War Whale, he has been very active in the southern sea region of the continent for the past 1,000 years, and has a high reputation. There is a sea region in the southern part of the continent that is the territory of the War Whale tribe. It is called the War Whale Sea region. There is a blessed land that has been occupied by the War Whale tribe for 10,000 years. Divine King War Whale is the current leader of the War Whale tribe. He is extremely talented and obtained a fortuitous opportunity in the southern sea's bottomless ruins. That is how he became a peak divine king and allowed the War Whale tribe to rise. After hearing the left and right protector's explanation, Ji Tianqing nodded slightly to show that he understood. At this time War Dragon King spoke again. He looked down at everyone with a confident smile and said in a dignified tone, Long Tian, and the rebels of the Myriad Demon Alliance, listen up. The two people standing behind me right now are the most respected experts on the continent. I believe many of you have already guessed. That's right. These two are Patriarch Golden Rock and Divine King War Whale. The mysterious Grotto Heaven is the overlord of the Star Source continent, and the ruler of the continent. These two experts did not care about worldly affairs, but they could not bear to see war break out everywhere and the people suffer. That is why they acted to uphold justice and pacify the disaster. The rebels of the Myriad Demon Alliance should have been sentenced to death for committing such heinous crimes. None of them should be spared. However, His Majesty the Dragon Emperor is benevolent, and these two experts are also merciful and compassionate. They do not want to commit more crimes. As long as you surrender now and seal your divine power, I can spare your lives. I promise you that I will not kill the ordinary members of the Alliance. I will only kill the main culprit to warn the world. The Battle Dragon King's voice was full of vigor and confidence. It was as if he had the entire situation under his control. The facts were indeed so. With the assistance of two peak divine kings, the profound paradise's victory was indeed in their grasp. Especially when he loudly announced the identities of the two peak divine kings, the 10,000 over people on the battlefield were all in an uproar. Everyone was stunned, their faces filled with astonishment. Then, everyone from the abstruse cave erupted in earth-shattering cheers. They were extremely excited. Everyone's face was brimming with joy and excitement from escaping death. The 6,000 members of the 10,000 Demon Alliance, on the other hand, were all overwhelmed with fear and desperation. They had never expected that this war would have so many twists and turns. The 10,000 Demon Alliance had just secured the victory, and was about to claim it. Who would have thought that the mysterious paradise would turn the tables in the end? This result was unacceptable to many people. Then, everyone heard the Battle Dragon King's declaration of surrender. The soldiers of the abstruse cave were naturally beside themselves with joy. They looked at their enemies with ridicule and pity, waiting to see the humiliating scene of them kneeling and begging to surrender. The 6,000 members of the 10,000 Demon Alliance were filled with grief and humiliation, but there was nothing they could do. Most of them refused to give up. They did not want to give up so easily, but they also did not want to be humiliated. They all looked at Ji Tianqing and the left and right protectors. As long as the acting alliance leader and the two protectors did not express their stance, they would not beg to surrender. However, there were still a few people who despaired. They thought that if they continued to resist, they would definitely die. Since that was the case, they might as well surrender and save their lives. At least the Battle Dragon King would not go back on his words. However, what made the soldiers of the 10,000 Demon Alliance anxious and uneasy was that Ji Tianqing was expressionless and did not react. He only secretly used his divine sense to send an order to the left and right protectors. Take 1,000 men and rush to the exit of the mysterious paradise. Kill everyone there and control the exit. The left and right protectors were stunned. They did not understand what he meant. They asked, "Young master, why are we controlling the exit now? What we need to deal with now are the two peak divine kings." "Young master, are you going to fight to the death and break out of the encirclement?" Ji Tianqing did not even turn his head. He continued to explain, "Our reinforcements have arrived. Go control the exit and coordinate with the outside to bring them in." "Ah, reinforcements? What reinforcements? Who will come to help us?" The left and right protectors were pleasantly surprised but also very confused. Ji Tianqing did not explain further. The two did not ask any more questions. They hurriedly led their men and left the battlefield. At this time the two sides had already stopped fighting. They gathered into two groups and faced each other in the sky. Even when they saw the left and right protectors take 1,000 men away, the War Dragon King and Xueshang did not stop them. As for Forefather Golden Rock and God King Battle Whale, they were like divine objects, watching everything with indifferent expressions. After all, their identities were special. They only needed to stand there. They did not need to do anything to represent everything. Seeing the myriad demon alliances silence, the War Dragon King was furious. He wanted to persuade them to surrender again. This time his attitude was even fiercer. He would not be amicable. After all, his injuries were very serious. They had already damaged the foundation of his divine Tao. He only wanted to settle this matter as soon as possible so that he could go into seclusion to heal. However, before he could speak, Ji Tianqing stepped forward. He looked at the two peak divine kings and asked, "Divine King Battle Whale, although the South Sea Blessed Land is to the south of the continent, and the Myriad Demon Alliance is to the northwest of the continent, we do not have much interaction. However, I believe that there is no enmity between us. Now that the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor is not here, why are you getting involved in this mess and showing your support for the mysterious paradise?" Divine King Battle Whale, who was as sturdy as a mountain, had been looking down with an indifferent expression. Now, he opened his eyes wide and looked at Ji Tianqing with a frown. He exuded a sacred aura that struck fear in others. He was not angry. Instead, he said with a playful smile, "Indeed, I do not have much interaction with the Myriad Demon Alliance. However, the South Sea Blessed Land and our Battle Whale tribe are indebted to the mysterious paradise for their help. Naturally, I have to return the favor. There are hundreds of divine kings and hundreds of first-rate factions on the continent. None of them dare to interfere. That is because they are too weak to participate. They are afraid that they will be implicated. However, the Battle Whale tribe and I do not have such concerns. We have the right to show our support. Long Tian, what do you think?" Since the other party had made it so clear, Ji Tianqing did not say anything more. He nodded slightly and turned his head to look at the Golden Rock ancestor. "Forefather Golden Rock, speaking of which, we have met once before. You are an old senior who does not care about worldly affairs. Why are you suddenly interfering?" Chapter 3783. Ji Tianqing looked at Forefather Golden Rock without a trace of hatred or killing intent. Even his tone was a little playful and puzzled. Many of the God Kings present frowned when they heard that. They became interested. Forefather Golden Rock was also stunned. He looked at Ji Tianqing for a while, and suddenly his golden eyebrows twitched as he recalled some old memories. "Oh, I remember now. You're Long Tian. That Long Tian, the last disciple of Dragon Emperor Feng Tian. More than 1,300 years ago, when Heavenly Dragon Emperor came to visit this old man, he brought you with him." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and smiled. "That's right." The Golden Rock Patriarch stared at Ji Tianqing. His golden eyes filled with reminiscence and reminiscence. His tone was low and deep. "Sigh. Things change with the passage of time. The past is still vivid in my mind, but 1,000 years have passed in the blink of an eye. This old man still remembers back then Tianlong Emperor took great care of you and praised you greatly, And you were also heroic, confident, and arrogant. I didn't expect that Dragon Emperor Feng Tian had already passed away, and you've grown to such a level. Forefather Golden Rock stroked his golden beard, and his thin cheeks revealed an envious expression. In terms of judging people and teaching according to their abilities, I'm indeed far inferior to Dragon Emperor Feng Tian. Seeing that Ji Tianqing and Forefather Golden Rock knew each other, and were talking about old times in public, War Dragon King's expression was a little unpleasant. He was hesitating whether to remind Forefather Golden Rock not to act on his emotions. Forefather Golden Rock put away his reminiscence and said to Ji Tianqing, Long Tian, although I'm good friends with your master and have some ties with you, this matter concerns the safety of this world. However, today's matter concerns the situation and safety of the entire Starsource continent. Please forgive this old man for not condoning or playing favorites. Xuanji Grotto Heaven was the rightful overlord of the Starsource continent, and had controlled the continent for more than 20,000 years. Although it had experienced many storms and twists and turns, it was generally peaceful. It was a time of peace and prosperity now. Billions of common people were able to live and work in peace, cultivate in peace, prolong their lives and pursue the divine Tao. The foundation of the Myriad Demon Alliance was still shallow. It was unwise for them to start a war so recklessly to shake the Xuanji paradise. In the end, both sides would suffer great losses, and the stable situation of the Starsource continent would fall into chaos and danger. In the end, no one knew who would be able to unify the world and control the Starsource continent again. However, I am certain that during this process, the Starsource continent will definitely be embroiled in the flames of war that will last for countless years. In order to prevent the common people from suffering, I had no choice but to accept the War Dragon King's invitation and make a trip to the Enigma Paradise. Although Patriarch Golden Rock said that he did not care about old ties and that he could not be biased, he did not care. However, the only reason he was willing to explain in such detail was because of the sky-sealing Dragon Emperor. Seeing that Ji Tianqing was deep in thought, the Golden Rock Patriarch continued, Long Tian, listen to my advice. Give up. For the sake of the people in the world and the tens of thousands of members of the 10,000 Demon Alliance, you should retreat. I guarantee you with my reputation that no one will make things difficult for you. Of course, if the Golden Dragon Emperor wants to take revenge on you in the future, that's your problem. Many of the God Kings widened their eyes in shock when they heard that. The War Dragon King's expression changed drastically. He instinctively cried out, no, absolutely not. He had long since made up his mind that no matter what, he would kill Ji Tianqing today and eliminate this great threat. In the end, the Golden Rock Patriarch still decided to be biased. He actually wanted to guarantee Ji Tianqing's safety. The War Dragon King was so angry that his liver hurt. He cursed in his heart, what a cunning old bastard. Not only do you want to win the good name of saving the common people, you also want to preserve the friendship of your old friends. Damned feathered beast. Of course, no matter how angry the War Dragon King was, he could only curse in his heart. On the surface, he did not dare to show any disrespect or anger. After all, he still needed the Golden Rock Patriarch to hold the fort. No one knew that Ji Tianqing's silence was not because he was thinking about the Golden Rock Patriarch's words. In fact, he was communicating with Peng Fei in the Zhouqian Ten Absolutes Pagoda. Peng Fei, what is your relationship with the Golden Rock Patriarch? Peng Fei was cultivating in seclusion in the Divine Pagoda. He was caught off guard by Ji Tianqing's question. After calming down, he calmed himself down and replied, Young Master Long, didn't you ask this question a long time ago? I am a disciple of the Golden Rock tribe. Of course I am a descendant of the Golden Rock Patriarch. Ji Tianqing did not give up. He continued, all members of the Golden Rock tribe can be called descendants of the Golden Rock Patriarch. But what I want to ask is, are you and the Golden Rock Patriarch's direct descendants? What is your seniority? Peng Fei hesitated. He asked carefully, Sir, did something happen to you? Or have you gone to the 9 mystical cave heaven to hand me over to the Patriarch? Hearing his strange tone, Ji Tianqing knew there was hope. He explained, I am now the acting leader of the 10,000 Demon Alliance. I am leading an army to attack the mystical cave heaven. Just as we were about to win, the mystical cave heaven invited 2 peak divine kings to help. One of the peak divine kings is your family's ancestor. Ah? Peng Fei was dumbfounded. He was like a petrified statue. Fortunately, he had already stopped cultivating. Otherwise, his divine power would have been in chaos and he would have gone mad. After a long time, he finally recovered from the monstrous shock. But he still could not believe it. He asked with a trembling voice, "Sir, you are not joking with me, right? You became the leader of the 10,000 Demon Alliance and led an army to attack the mystical cave heaven? And you're going to win? Oh my God, what happened to this world? Why did it become so strange and crazy?" Ji Tianqing did not give Peng Fei time to calm down and digest the information. He asked Peng Fei, "Can you persuade the Golden Rock Patriarch not to get involved in this mess? Don't say you can't do it. If you really can't do it, then I can only fight back and kill him and that divine King War Whale together." What? Peng Fei, who still hadn't calmed down, was once again scared out of his wits when he heard this. His entire person was somewhat dazed. "Sir, you are also a peak divine king? How is this possible? Why didn't I see it before? Could it be that you have been hiding your strength?" In a short time he was forced to accept too much information. It was too shocking. Peng Fei was already incoherent. Ji Tianqing still did not explain. He said in a calm and dignified tone, "The situation is urgent. I don't have time to explain it to you. I will give you 10 breaths of time to think. Can you persuade your patriarch to give up on this matter?" 97. Peng Fei panted heavily and forced himself to calm down. When Ji Tianqing shouted 3, he finally made an impulsive decision. "Sir, let me try." Chapter 3784. Let you try. Peng Fei's somewhat unconfident voice made Ji Tianqing frown. Now that the 2 armies are facing each other, the decisive battle is about to start. Moreover, everyone on the battlefield is a God King powerhouse. If you don't have the confidence, then don't take the risk. Although Ji Tianqing wanted Peng Fei to help him take care of Forefather Golden Rock, this powerful enemy, without using force, he did not want to force Peng Fei to do so. However, he didn't want to force Peng Fei to do this in order to avoid bringing disaster to Peng Fei. At most, he would go all out and use all his trump cards and ultimate skills to fight the 2 great peak god kings. However, after Peng Fei was silent for a moment, he said in a low and complicated tone, "I should still have 60 to 70% confidence. After all, I'm a direct descendant of the forefather. According to seniority, he's my grandfather's great-grandfather." Without a doubt, now that things had developed to this extent, Peng Fei finally revealed the truth. This was his identity secret. It had never been exposed before. Ji Tianqing was also full of surprise. He said with a light smile, "Haha, I already guessed that you shouldn't be an ordinary Golden Rock descendant. I didn't expect it to be so. In that case, the Golden Rock race's current patriarch is your grandfather?" Peng Fei's emotions were somewhat complicated. He answered in a muffled voice. It was unknown what he was worried about. Ji Tianqing comforted him. "Don't worry too much. I have some relationship with your forefather. He already protected me in front of everyone just now. However, just protecting him a little is not enough. I have to remove him from this matter. Now it's up to your performance." Finishing, he opened the spatial passage to the divine pagoda. Peng Fei's thoughts were still somewhat chaotic. Before he could adjust his mood and state, he was sent into the sky and exposed to everyone's attention. Swoosh! Peng Fei, dressed in a golden robe, appeared beside Ji Tianqing with a bitter and complicated expression. He instantly became everyone's focus. King War Dragon, Forefather Golden Rock, and Divine King War Whale all stared at Ji Tianqing. More than 10,000 people on the battlefield were also waiting for his decision to surrender or resist. But right at this moment, a golden-robed young man suddenly appeared beside him. Many people originally thought that this was Ji Tianqing's trump card, and that it was definitely a peak god king powerhouse. When everyone saw through that Peng Fei only had peak Divine Lord strength, their faces were immediately full of astonishment. What's going on? What does he mean? Who is that golden-robed youth? Why do I feel that the golden-robed kid's appearance and temperament are a little similar to Patriarch Golden Rock? What does Long Tian want? Do you want to fight or surrender? Give me a quick answer. Many god kings and thousands of god lords looked at Ji Tianqing and Peng Fei in confusion. Only Emperor Battle Dragon, Forefather Golden Peng, Divine Emperor Battle Whale, Hu Xinyue, and the others realized something was amiss. This was especially true for Patriarch Golden Rock. Although he appeared calm on the surface, he had already understood something. He frowned slightly and looked meaningfully at Peng Fei. Then, he stared at Ji Tianqing and sent a voice transmission. Little guy, you're a little shameless. You're not as arrogant as before. Ji Tianqing bowed slightly and sent a voice transmission back. Senior, I had no choice. Please forgive me. Patriarch Golden Rock didn't say anything else, but he sighed in his heart. He felt a little bitter. He had already guessed what Peng Fei wanted to do, so he felt helpless. At this moment, Emperor Battle Dragon and Divine Emperor Battle Whale looked at Peng Fei, and then at Patriarch Golden Rock. Their eyes flickered as they vaguely guessed something. Divine Emperor Battle Whale was still calm, but Emperor Battle Dragon's eyes were already showing anger. Just as the experts were speaking in riddles and maintaining their silence, while the 10,000 Overseer gods were confused, Peng Fei finally spoke. He had also been shocked by such a huge lineup, but he quickly calmed down. He ignored the 10,000 god lords and only stared at Patriarch Golden Rock as he walked over step by step. There was no doubt that 10,000 pairs of eyes were staring at him. Their gazes were filled with doubt, disdain, hatred, and all sorts of other emotions. It made him feel extremely pressured. With every step he took, he felt as if he was walking on a mountain that was tens of thousands of meters tall. After a dozen steps, he was drenched in cold sweat. Even so, he gritted his teeth and walked slowly toward Patriarch Golden Rock. The distance between the two of them was clearly only 100,000 feet, but he had to walk for a full quarter of an hour before arriving. When he stopped in front of Patriarch Golden Rock, he was only 10 steps away. Emperor Battle Dragon and Divine Emperor Battle Whale's invisible aura had already made him tremble. His face was pale. Fortunately, Patriarch Golden Rock secretly released his aura to protect him, helping him to resist the pressure of the two top experts. Disciple Peng Fei greets Patriarch. Peng Fei knelt down solemnly and kowtowed to Patriarch Golden Rock. His posture was extremely respectful. Patriarch Golden Rock looked at him deeply. There was no anger or disappointment in his eyes. Instead, there was a flash of relief. After all, this great-great-grandson of his was only a god lord. But he was able to remain calm in such a situation without losing his composure. It was clear that he was very determined. Yes, he was a talent with potential. He had a successor. What is it? Patriarch Golden Rock nodded slightly, and used invisible divine power to help Peng Fei stand up. He asked calmly. Peng Fei bowed and said calmly, Patriarch, a senior once taught me that everything has its ups and downs, and that everything has its ups and downs. Heaven and earth have its Tao, and life and death are all reincarnations. You live in seclusion and only ask the will of the heavens, not the mundane world. Therefore, you leave the affairs of the world to the people of the world. I only wish to accompany you home and continue to listen to the will of the heavens. It was a simple sentence, but it explained the cycle of life and death in the mundane world, as well as the merciless principle of reincarnation. Divine Emperor Battle Whale narrowed his eyes and looked deeply at Peng Fei. Battle Dragon King's expression changed drastically, and he glared sharply at Peng Fei. All of this fell into Patriarch Golden Rock's eyes. Patriarch Golden Rock nodded and glanced at Ji Tianqing. He frowned in thought for a moment, then suddenly smiled. Haha. The senior you speak of is indeed a great power who has not appeared in the world. He can already understand the will of the heavens, and is likely not far from surpassing the Divine King realm. That senior has seen through everything, and it is this old man who has fallen into a disadvantage. Forget it. This old man is not of the world to begin with, so why should I care about the affairs of the world? The first sentence was directed at Peng Fei, but the last two sentences sounded like he was talking to himself. When he finished, Patriarch Golden Rock smiled in relief. He flung his sleeves and left with Peng Fei. Battle Dragon King and Divine Emperor Battle Whale were left to the side without even a word of explanation. This scene made more than 10,000 people in the field dumbfounded. They were all stunned on the spot. He's gone just like that? Of course, no one knew what Patriarch Golden Rock's true thoughts were, or how much of what he said was true. Or perhaps he left without an explanation because he didn't know how to. But all of this, who could prove it? Chapter 3785. Forefather Golden Rock. Wait. Seeing that Forefather Golden Rock had already flown thousands of miles away, Battle Dragon King finally regained his senses and hurriedly chased after him. Forefather Golden Rock paused in midair with Peng Fei and turned to look at Battle Dragon King. Battle Whale, Shueshang, Jitianxing, Hu Xinyue, and the others all remained where they were, watching them from afar. Everyone knew that Battle Dragon King had finally found a life-saving straw, a trump card to turn the tables. How could he give it up so easily? However, the crux of the matter was what Battle Dragon King had to say. Battle Dragon King stopped in front of Forefather Golden Rock and frowned. Forefather Golden Rock, I know that you've been in seclusion, focused on cultivating your divine Tao. However, the world is in chaos now, and the traitors of the Myriad Demon Alliance want to wreak havoc on the continent. Since you've already come to Xuanji Grotto Heaven, you should kill these traitors for the sake of His Majesty Dragon Emperor. However, you've just left without a proper explanation. You're not giving His Majesty Dragon Emperor any face. I hope you won't be blinded by these traitors and uphold justice for the world. Although Forefather Golden Rock was a peak divine king, he had always kept a low profile, and his personality was honest and gentle. Battle Dragon King had Xuanji Grotto Heaven as his backer, and his status was noble, so he did not have much respect for Forefather Golden Rock. With such accusations, there was even a hidden threat in his words. His meaning was simple. Forefather Golden Rock had left today, but His Majesty Dragon Emperor would definitely punish him when he returned. 9 Mystical Grotto Heaven would definitely suffer. At first, Forefather Golden Rock had felt guilty. Now that he saw the War Dragon King's unyielding attitude, the guilt in his heart disappeared without a trace. He bowed slightly to the Battle Dragon King and said calmly without any anger, Battle Dragon King, this old man didn't think it through and accepted your invitation to come here. Now that I've thought it through, I want to leave again. This is indeed this old man's fault. This old man apologizes to you. However, there are some things that I must clarify in front of everyone today. I've stayed away from worldly affairs for 20,000 years, not because I'm afraid of anyone, but because I've always admired the great Tao. I'm willing to come to the Enigma Grotto, not because I'm giving anyone face, but because I don't want to see the common people suffer. I want to use my meager strength to turn things around. But I've thought it through now. Everything in the world has a cycle of cause and effect. The heavenly Tao is fair, and it's absolutely not something that we can interfere with. As for the justice and the country that you speak of, other than the heavenly Tao, who else can represent justice in this world? Neither the Xuanji Grotto nor the Myriad Demon Alliance could represent them. Therefore, this old man has understood and decided to stay out of this matter, and allow the will of the heavens to arrange it. I will not go against the will of the heavens. After saying that, the Golden Rock ancestor calmly looked at the Battle Dragon King and asked, Battle Dragon King, do you understand what I mean? Everyone present, as long as they weren't idiots, understood. Patriarch Golden Rock just didn't want to meddle in other people's business. As for the talk about justice and the heavenly Tao, it was just to leave some face for everyone. The Enigma Grotto Heaven used to be the overlord of the Star Source continent, representing justice and the country. However, this did not mean that the Xuanji Grotto would always be the overlord, nor would it always be righteous. Everything in the world would rise and fall, and so would the rise and fall of a dynasty. If the Myriad Demon Alliance destroyed the Enigma Grotto and replaced it, then the Myriad Demon Alliance would be righteous in the country. On the other hand, if the Myriad Demon Alliance failed, then they would be rebels and the Enigma Grotto would still be the overlord. In short, the winner was king and the loser was in the wrong. Whoever won was right. This was the will of the heavens. No one could refute this kind of hooliganism. Moreover, it was easy to understand and more than 10,000 people present agreed. However, War Dragon King was furious. He pointed at Golden Rock Grand Elder and shouted, "You, what a sharp tongue you have! How dare you distort the truth with your words? Very well, Patriarch Golden Rock. You must remember what you did today, and when His Majesty the Dragon Emperor returns, he will make you regret it." This was already a blatant threat. God King Warwhale, Shueshang, and many other god kings from the Enigma Grotto were anxious. "Oh Battle Dragon King, no matter how angry you are, you should hold it in. You can't fall out with the Golden Rock Ancestor. The Golden Rock Ancestor is obviously protecting the Myriad Demon Alliance in Long Tian, and you're threatening him to his face. If he's forced to help the Myriad Demon Alliance, won't we be doomed?" Similar thoughts flashed through the minds of everyone present. The Golden Rock Ancestor was not angry at all. He still looked kind and amiable. However, his slightly stooped body straightened up. His murky golden eyes became clear as he looked at the Battle Dragon King. He said in a dignified tone, "The Golden Rock tribe does not take the initiative to cause trouble, but we are not afraid of it either." After saying that, he ignored the Battle Dragon King and left with Peng Fei. Whoosh! Under everyone's gaze, the grandfather-grandson pair gradually disappeared into the distance. When they were hundreds of thousands of miles away, no one could see them, and not even divine consciousness could detect them. They were not far from the exit of the Enigma Grotto. At this moment, the grandfather-grandson pair saw a large group of figures flying in the sky from the direction of the exit. These figures were as fast as streaks of light. There were more than 30 of them and they looked like a dark cloud. The Golden Rock Ancestor frowned slightly as he glanced at them. He could tell at a glance that they were all godly kings. When he saw their clothes, he realized that they were not from the Enigma Grotto. They seemed to be from the Myriad Demon Alliance. Only then did he relax. The godly kings naturally saw the Golden Rock Ancestor and Peng Fei. They were all on high alert, and they gripped their divine weapons tightly. However, 2 of the 3 elders in the lead were injured 9th-layer godly kings. They were the left and right protectors. They sized up the Golden Rock Ancestor and Peng Fei, then said something to the godly kings behind them. As a result, the godly kings let down their guard and changed their direction slightly. They brushed past the Golden Rock Ancestor and Peng Fei. The 2 sides did not stop, nor did they communicate. Their figures quickly disappeared into the horizon. About half an hour later, the Golden Rock Ancestor and Peng Fei arrived at the exit of the Enigma Grotto. At this moment, they saw that the Godstone array near the exit had been destroyed. The area within 10,000 miles was in ruins. In the ruins, they could vaguely see the corpses of the Golden Dragon Guards. There were 10 godly kings from the Myriad Demon Alliance, and more than 600 godly monarchs guarding the exit. Peng Fei was taken aback when he saw this. Then he smiled in relief. He already had an answer in his heart. The outcome of this battle was already decided. The Myriad Demon Alliance was bound to win. When the Golden Rock Ancestor and Peng Fei approached the exit, the Myriad Demon Alliance experts guarding the exit immediately became alert. 6 godly kings led dozens of godly monarchs. They held divine weapons and surrounded them warily. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.